ReZero, Starting Life in Another World by Tappei Nagatsuki, casted six-tale novel. Please subscribe to our channel. Atop a little hill rising out of a green, grassy plain that smelled of wildflowers, the witches' tea party was about to commence. The witches in attendance were all notorious figures who had rampaged across every corner of the world 4 centuries ago. Joining them was a single boy from a foreign land in a foreign world, plus one final participant who had just arrived. This last-minute appearance elicited a variety of reactions from the 6 witches already there. One clenched her fists with a forlorn look. One shrank back in palpable fear. One closed her eyes with a languid sigh. One drooled in ecstasy. One spread both arms wide in an innocent, welcoming gesture. And the last of the 6,
crossing multiple boundaries to intrude upon even my castle of dreams. Her rudeness truly knows no limits.
Echidna the witch's gaze and voice grew pointed as she spat out those words, directing them toward the detestable shadow approaching the table. The sheer hatred and disgust reflected in those eyes made the boy, Subaru Natsuki, gaze in wonder. Subaru had been roundly criticizing Echidna for lacking proper human emotions just moments earlier. It was only natural for him to be shocked by her display of such vehement feelings, even if those emotions were incredibly negative rather than positive.
But right now,
there was an issue that took precedence over Echidna's raw emotions. Subaru and the witches watched as the shadow slowly came up the hill. The shadow was clad in a pitch-black dress, with a veil of darkness concealing her face. The oddly hazy impression she gave off was impossible to ignore. No one had any doubt about her true identity. She was the one who had slain the 6 witches now gathered once again in this place. She was the worst of calamities, and one who had nearly destroyed the world. This shadow was the witch of jealousy. Cheeks stiff from tension and wariness, Subaru could feel every beat of his heart. In the back of his mind, he could see the sanctuary vanishing into shadow, swallowed by the madness and obsessiveness of the witch who had already caused such devastation once before. What would happen if the same thing occurred in this dream world? The thought alone left him aghast. Of course, there were 6 witches besides jealousy in this place. Perhaps these witches who bore titles of similar power would be able to resist her in some way. However,
why isn't anyone making a move?
Subaru seemed short of breath as his confusion trickled out of him. Jealousy was right in front of them, just now reaching the crest of the hill. Only a few scant yards remained between them. The looming apprehension he felt rivaled that terrible moment back in the sanctuary. But that was all. Jealousy wasn't fanning out her shadows. Her old acquaintances, the other witches, were also not doing anything besides waiting quietly in place. Not a single one of them budged. Not a single one tried to avenge themselves.
The fact that no one is doing anything means...
Abruptly, someone stepped forward, breaking the silence. She crossed her arms, emphasizing her bountiful breasts in the process. A terrible anger was visible on this witch's adorable face. It was none other than Minerva of Wrath.
Is this the you I know? Can I trust you?
Without flinching, Minerva called out to Jealousy. There was no reply, but her act made Subaru open his eyes wide and gape. That was only natural. As far as Subaru knew, Minerva was the only one of the witches besides Jealousy who lacked any means of directly attacking her opponent. She was the weakest witch of all. This was because her power to transform any kind of violence into healing was the least suited for combat.
So why isn't anyone trying to stop her?
Every last one of them had to have some kind of grudge against Jealousy, if not hatred that was comparable to what Echidna harbored toward her. And yet, no one made any move to prevent Minerva's attempt at conversation. Just as shocking was Jealousy, who had no answer for Minerva's words. The witch stood there, paying no heed to her whatsoever. The sight of such defenselessness left Subaru confounded. In terms of brute force, magical ability, and authorities, if the 6 witches challenged her then and there, Jealousy would easily be.
I understand how you feel. I raise both hands in sincere approval. If we could erase her in an instant without leaving even a single fragment behind, it would settle so many of the problems swirling around you. Truly it would.
You!
Subaru felt utterly disgusted at how Echidna nodded with a knowing look. But as much as he hated to admit it, if there was anyone who could ease Subaru's doubts at this moment, it was the Witch of Greed.
Then why aren't you doing anything? This is a chance to get payback after all these years.
Simple. If I attempt to eliminate her, I will expose my back to all the other witches. Even if we ignore Minerva, I am not strong enough to survive making an enemy of Sekhmet or Typhon.
What?
The incomprehensible logic of Echidna's explanation baffled Subaru.
I just don't get it. Why would trying to kill the Witch of Jealousy mean that you'd end up fighting the other witches? You might have a particular thirst for vengeance, but isn't she an enemy to Ev?
That's not true.
It was Carmilla of Lust's halting words that interrupted Subaru's question. She ignored Subaru's gawking, keeping her eyes on the standoff between Minerva and jealousy.
All of us hold a grudge against jealousy. That is true. But this isn't true for that G-girl, you know?
The hell are you? All of you hold a grudge against jealousy, but this is different?
That's right. You're just overthinking it, Subaru.
When Subaru failed to follow what Carmilla was saying, Daphne of Gluttony spoke in her stead, laughing with a sweet voice. She turned her blindfolded face towards Subaru, smacking her lips as she savored his delectable anguish.
Everything comes down to whether it's Tella or jealousy who came. If we don't know that, there's nothing Daphne and the others can do. A candidate to be a sage should know that much.
Let him be, Daphne. He doesn't know, Hugh, about any of that yet. Teppy?
Oh, is that right? Daphne made an oopsie.
Daphne wore a smile that seemed devoid of any malice as Sekhmet chastised her. The Witch of Sloth lowered her eyes, which were rimmed by long eyelashes, before emitting a particularly lethargic sigh.
Why, you little...
Subaru felt rage welling up when it became incredibly obvious from the exchange and their knowing looks that he had been left out of the loop. He'd gotten this far by being completely and utterly swept along by recent events. A harrowing return by death, an undesired second trial, and learning about Echidna's true nature on top of everything else. It felt like the witches had toyed with his heart one after another until finally he found himself face to face with the Witch of Jealousy herself. Daphne's and Sekhmet's exchange was the last push that sent Subaru's head reeling. Just how much were they going to make a fool of him?
Cut the crap already! I ain't got the time or the patience to be messing around.
Wow, Baru. So scawy. Are you mad? You'll get tired, you know?
Typhon of Pride poked a finger into her cheek, tilting her head as she innocently questioned Subaru.
Also, get it right. We're not mad at Tella, but we are mad at the witch. And you see, Typhon likes Tella, so...
Tella, you mean Satella? That's the name of the Witch of Jealousy, ain't it?
To put it in simple terms, the world remembered Satella as the Witch of Jealousy. However, what was not recorded in history was that Satella had a type of personality disorder.
Echidna picked up where Typhon's explanation left off to fill in the blanks with words even Subaru could comprehend. Unfortunately, he had no idea how he should interpret the words personality disorder. That could be
Something like a split personality? That would mean Satella and the Witch of Jealousy are?
Perhaps it would be clearer to say that she absorbed a factor that was incompatible with her, causing a mental abnormality that ultimately created the witch personality within Satella. Not that I personally have any inclination to distinguish between the two.
Echidna was disgruntled, but Subaru could not conceal his shock at the new fact that had come to light. He couldn't recall ever hearing a word about Satella and the Witch of Jealousy being two distinct personalities. Was natural this information couldn't be found anywhere in the legends. At the same time, this revelation finally allowed him to comprehend the current standoff. Was the person standing before them the Witch of Jealousy or Satella? Even the other witches apparently didn't know.
Accordingly, I cannot recklessly go on the attack. If I cross the other 5 just to eliminate her alone, there will be no hope for victory. After all, if my soul dissipates, even I cannot escape death.
But this is a big risk for the other 5 too, isn't it? You were lending your soul out to them, right? If you vanish, won't they go up in smoke too?
They've already accepted their deaths. They have no lingering attachments to a prolonged existence as mere souls. Rather than struggle to remain, they would rather perish while living according their beliefs. It is because we are only capable of this destructive way of life that we are witches.
Not a single one of the other 5 disputed Echidna's statement. Subaru could not approve of the witch's way of life, for it was too focused on living in the moment for him to consider it pure of heart. Such fanatic devotion to a singular purpose, both in life and in death, was far from normal. Moreover,
I get you're all like that. It's hard to accept, but I can at least understand where you're coming from. But that only goes for you guys. For Sate, for that witch, it's different.
he had managed to grasp the witch's perspective. However, this was ultimately an account from the victims. He had yet to hear the offender's story, if that was even possible. Without a word, the pitch-black figure watched on as Subaru spoke with the witches. No, it was more accurate to say that jealousy watched Subaru alone.
It's better than her attacking without a word like last time we met, but only barely. What did she come to? What does she want to make me do? What did she do to me? What did she want to make Subaru Natsuki to do in this world?
If you want to know the answer, then ask her yourself.
Minerva interrupted Subaru's thoughts with a voice that was mixed with both irritation and a sense of grief. Standing at Jealousy's side, she kept her blue eyes wide open, which were brimming with tears as she glared at Subaru.
I don't want to hear your lame excuses. This girl came here to meet you. Speak to her directly. If you can't manage that, then you aren't the man we thought you are.
Aren't the man you? The hell are you going on about? Who asked you to pass judgment on me? I'm not about to just roll over and do whatever you want.
If you aren't going to talk to her, then what would you rather do? Phew.
Lying on her side, Sekhmet suddenly tossed a question toward the emotional Subaru. Not moving from the slovenly posture that was worthy of her title, Sloth turned her pale face until she was looking directly at Subaru's reddened one.
As you can see, we are in a stalemate. Phew. At this point, the key literally rests in your hands. Pew. For better or for worse, that is, ...
Subaru could feel on his skin how Sekhmet's words drew the gazes of all the witches to him. Everything had been entrusted to Subaru Natsuki, the weakest, most foolish and shallowest among them. The relationship between Jealousy and the other 6 witches was just as they had told him. The witches kept one another in check, while Jealousy's attention was focused on Subaru alone.
Echidna, you don't have any intention of letting me out of here, do you?
It is meaningless to neglect this situation, after all. I am a maiden suffering from a broken heart after a certain someone cruelly dumped me. At the very least, I want to see what you will choose in your current position. If I dared to wish for more, I would be very gratified to see you cruelly dump another girl.
You really are a witch!
After hearing that malicious reply, Subaru closed his eyes, exhaling slightly. Then he steeled himself and slowly began approaching Jealousy, the witch shrouded in shadow.
Took you long enough to decide.
What sounded like an insult slipped out of Minerva as she took a step away from Jealousy's side. With this, there was no one left to intrude between Subaru and Jealousy. The two faced off against each other, close enough to touch. Though they were but a few short yards apart, Subaru felt the pressure increasing with every step. Even looking directly at her like this, he could see nothing of her face, hidden as it was behind a veil of darkness. This was not because the shadow was so thick that it obscured everything from sight. His primal instincts had chosen to not see.
Everyone would prefer to avert their eyes from their most unsightly delusions. If you cannot see her face, the issue lies within your own mind.
From somewhere behind him, someone gave welcome advice that cleared some of his doubts. He wanted to suck his teeth, but he resisted the impulse. More importantly, Subaru didn't have enough composure to bother with Echidna. Whether it was Satella or jealousy before him, he could not take his eyes away from either. If his gaze wandered for even a split second, there was no telling what might happen that very Senrism bus.
Ah.
Suddenly, Subaru found two hands being offered to him. His throat froze over. Subaru had been on guard, not taking his eyes off jealousy for even a single second. And yet, in an instant, all his efforts were for nothing. It wasn't that he failed to see. He saw her move from start to finish. It was simply that when jealousy raised her hands toward him, all he could do was watch in silence.
Seriously, what's with you? What do you want me to do?
Subaru shook his head from side to side, refusing the outstretched hands. Seeing jealousy's actions and knowing that she was standing right there in front of him made Subaru feel something hot inside his chest. It would have been easier if what he felt was hatred or disgust, but this was something else. What Subaru Natsuki's soul felt was relief when he looked at the Witch of Jealousy.
Whoa.
Subaru was mostly occupied by the chaos that gripped Heart. That explained his delayed reaction to the faint sound that reached his eardrums. His comprehension was delayed as well. It took him a moment to realize that it was jealousy who had made that sound. Veiled by shadow, Subaru was unable to see jealousy's expression as both her hands still reached toward him as if she was slowly attempting to convey something to him. Swallowing hard, Subaru waited for her. Finally, the Witch of Jealousy spoke.
I have always loved you. You and you alone.
The instant he heard that confession of love, an indescribable impact shot through Subaru's whole body. From the crown of his head to the tips of his toes, he felt like a bolt of lightning had passed through him. Every hair on his body was standing up, and every pore was open. All the blood coursing through his body seemed to be boiling and steaming. His chest beat so loud and hard that it hurt. Subaru breathed unevenly as he backed away. Subaru knew he could not stay here. If he didn't leave, her breath would reach him. Her fingers would touch him. Instinctively, Subaru understood that if he did not flee to a safe place, he would be swept away by love.
Stop it!
I love you.
Please stop.
I have always loved you, and only you, with all my heart.
I told you to stop. Damn it.
With a hoarse voice, he spurned her. Still, the fire in Subaru's chest didn't abate at all. His mind rejected her, but his soul found her a source of comfort. This inconsistency set Subaru's heart aflame as he wrestled against the contradiction within himself. If he didn't do so, he was absolutely certain that the very core of his being would become totally warped. The very first ray of light Subaru Natsuki had found in this world was his love for Emilia. Summoned to a foreign place with no one to depend on, she was the one who reached out to him in his time of crisis. How much had her existence been his salvation? During the dark days when he died over and over again, his feelings only grew as his soul cried out for her. He could no longer say that his feelings for Emilia were the only reason he continued forging ahead. Subaru had gained a great many things since his arrival. He had met many people whom he now cared for deeply. However, the Witch of Jealousy's compulsion was so powerful that it rivaled all those emotions put together. The conversations and warm touches he had shared, the time he had spent with others, the many bonds he had forged. All the love contained within these moments were in danger of being stripped from him, despite the fact that there was nothing real between him and this witch. If this wasn't the definition of repulsive, then what else could it be?
You're insane. You and Echidna both. This place, it's filled with people who make no sense. I've had it. I'm done, damn it.
Subaru scattered angry shouts with a frenzied face, making his refusal as clear as possible. He didn't want to be by jealousy's side in front of Echidna or stay in the company of the other witches for a single second longer. Subaru had countless other things he ought to be doing. There was nothing he needed here. This is a waste of time. I want to get out of here right now. Please, release me.
I won't take help from any of you. I'll deal with all the problems outside by myself. That's fine, isn't it? That's what I should have done from the start.
And then you'll die again. Repeat the cycle and make everyone cry. time after time after time. Then you'll excuse it by saying their tears are an unavoidable sacrifice? Wow, how admirable of you!
When Subaru bid them farewell, Minerva applauded him with a sour look on her face. Subaru turned his bloodshot eyes toward her, yelling, "So what?" and flaring his nostrils as he glared at Minerva.
What does it have to with you? You got a problem with return by death. The pain, the suffering, the trauma, those are all my problem and no one else's. Damn it. Either way, it's none of your business.
Must be nice to say you're resigned to pain and suffering. No matter what the people watching you think, you can keep making excuses by saying you're the one who has it toughest.
What did you say?
If your suffering is the most obvious, no one around you is allowed to say a word. You're the one suffering the worst, after all. So the weak voices around you just stay silent. Of course they do.
As Minerva spoke, the tone of her voice steadily grew stronger and angrier. Subaru could not remain silent.
Are you trying to say I'm drowning in some self-made tragedy just to shut up everyone around me? That I'm only at a dead end right now because I want to star in my own tragic drama?
That's not really what I'm getting at. It's fine if I am the one who's hurting the most idea is low and unfair. I think Echidna's a black-hearted schemer, too, and I know exactly how underhanded she can be. But I think you're twisted in a way that's creepier than any witch. More than anything, as someone who hits everything that's hurt to heal it, your way of living isn't just the direct opposite of mine. It makes you my natural enemy. Something like that is just too cruel for her.
After airing all her grievances and slamming them against Subaru's feelings, Minerva finally looked toward Jealousy. Jealousy had gone silent ever since Subaru shouted at her, neither agreeing nor disagreeing with Minerva, or showing any sign of reacting to the conversation at all. The faint tears in Minerva's eyes told Subaru that she found it a lonely sight. But that didn't matter to him at all.
Creepy? Croupy? Cruel?
Subaru bent forward, his shoulders trembling. The trembling gradually grew stronger until finally Subaru lifted up his face and laughed. It was so overwhelmingly stupid he couldn't help but laugh.
The hell is that supposed to mean? Creepy or not, why do you think I decided to do things this way? How do you think I ended up becoming twisted? The way I see it, my methods and my way of thinking are just a natural result of what I've been through. Am I wrong? You made me like this, god damn it!
Subaru shouted his anger at Jealousy, who seemed to stand there in silence to escape all responsibility. Through accepting and using return by death, Subaru had overcome many challenges. The despair he tasted from embracing death again and again was carved into his soul. That was how Subaru had gotten this far. This was the road of scars that had led Subaru Natsuki to his current way of thinking.
The pain, the suffering, all that should be for me. If I'm the only one who gets hurt, that's better for everyone, ain't it? No matter how hard it gets, I'll just clench my teeth and bear it. That way, no one else has to go through what I do. As long as no one but me gets torn up from start to finish, well, what the hell's wrong with that?
Shouldering everything by yourself without saying a word to anyone else. It's as if you think no one besides you is capable of doing anything.
If I didn't do anything, what would have changed? Wouldn't we just end up with horrible futures? If not me, then who? Who else could have gotten this far?
Through trial and error by repeatedly using return by death, Subaru had discovered the optimal path. It was just like Echidna had said. He wasn't thrilled to agree with the sweet whisperings of the witch who was taking advantage of his resolve to fulfill her own selfish desires. But he could still stay the course regardless. If a scarred Subaru could find a path to a future where no one else had to get hurt, then...
Earlier, I said I can't understand you and that I'm sick of all this. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't take even one bit of it back. But it's true, I'm grateful to you too. It was real shitty of me to forget that in the moment. I'm grateful to you for one thing and one thing only. Thanks for giving me return by death. That's all I'm thankful for. Without that, I wouldn't have been able to protect a fly. I'll keep relying on this power from here on out as well. So for that alone, I'm thanking you.
He was determined to continue making progress through trial and error. The option of running away had disappeared long ago. Ever since the moment he'd grasped a certain girl's hands and asked her to run away together, only to be rejected. Running was not an option. His only choice was to keep fighting. That was what he'd sworn to do. She expected that from Subaru, too. She trusted that Subaru wouldn't run away. She trusted that Subaru was a man who could climb back onto his feet. If he couldn't do that, he'd never be able to face her again.
That's why I'm thanking you only for the power you gave me. Even a guy like me with no redeeming features can bust through a hopeless dead end like...
Don't.
A dead end, like...
With one phrase, jealousy stopped Subaru in his tracks, keeping him from venting the dark emotions dominating the inside of his chest. That faint, whisper-like murmur dulled his momentum. His cheeks hardening, Subaru breathed hard as he blinked. What did she say to him just then? After a momentary silent pause, jealousy spoke to Subaru.
Don't cry. Don't hurt yourself. Don't suffer. Don't make such a sad face.
Jealousy pleaded with Subaru, as if urging him, or maybe even praying. Her words clouded the fierce emotions in Subaru's heart. Part of it was anger, part of it was surprise, and the rest was a mix of various emotions that made no sense whatsoever.
Ooh, why? You saying?
His throat caught in shock. He didn't know how he should respond. All he could do was stare at jealousy. Bewildered, Subaru was already shaken, but jealousy was not done yet.
Love, please.
In the end, that's what it's all about. You twist my feelings, then tell me to love you. Who'd love someone like...
No.
When Subaru tried to reject her through his trembling, jealousy engaged him in conversation for the first time. Even then, he could not see her face. However, in his soul, he knew what expression jealousy was making as she gazed at him from the other side of that curtain of darkness. He knew what face Satella, was looking at him with at that very moment.
Love yourself more.
She was surely gazing at him with a look of affection. Even though the meaning of her words had already permeated Subaru's brain, it still took a fair bit for them to register. The moment understanding spread through his mind, Subaru's heart was overwhelmed by a wave of indescribable sensations.
What the hell are you even saying?
Don't hurt yourself. Don't be sorry. Take better care of yourself.
Shit, you're the one who gave me return by death. You're the one who gave me this power that lets me move forward, damn it!
I love you. That's why I want you to love and protect yourself.
If you take away the way I cope, the way I defend myself, then what the hell do I have left?
Rejecting Satella's whispers of inexhaustible love, Subaru shouted, pressing his hand hard against his own chest.
You know, don't you? I don't have any power, no smarts or special skills either. I don't have a single advantage of my own. I don't have anything but the return by death ability you gave me. That's why the only thing I can pay with is my own life.
Don't be sad.
If I'm hurt more than other people, if I see more things than other people, if I can run around protecting everyone, then no one but me has to go through this awful stuff. That's all I want.
Please don't cry.
You don't really care what happens to me, do you? Whatever happens to a guy like me, no one's gonna shed a tear. No matter how beat up I get, if everyone can reach the future safe and sound, then that's...
After all, if Subaru didn't stay on the front line, continuing to be hurt like that.
Farah, if I can get to tomorrow without losing anyone, that's...
There was a chance he might lose someone in a way he could never undo.
Rem's gone. It never would have happened if I was smarter, if I had any power, if I'd cared less for myself, if only I'd laid my life on the line in the first place.
The sense of loss and despair from that time still weighed heavily on Subaru Natsuki. That was why Subaru chose to rely on no one but himself while continuing to fight his painful battles alone. If choosing to rely on someone else or seeking out aid meant he would lose another person dear to him, then
If I don't believe that there has to be a way to make this work,
if he could master how to use it, Subaru wouldn't have to lose anything. He could solve everything with return by death. If he lost faith in that idea, if he stopped telling himself his suffering was necessary and he couldn't convince himself anymore, then how could he ever confront that despair again?
I don't want to lose anyone else like how I lost Rem.
Clutching his head, Subaru screamed in denial of anything and everything beyond himself. He realized that at some point, he had slumped to the ground. With Satella right before his eyes, he was cowering inside his shell, shutting out her soft, tiny whispers. She was poison, a deadly substance. Satella's very existence was like a sweet venom that melted Subaru's hardened heart. As it melted, frigid despair seeped into the cracks that had opened up, dredging up the crushing loss he felt that day.
You're not a child, are you?
Out of the blue, he heard a voice murmur. As Subaru tearfully shouted while stubbornly clinging to the conclusion he'd reached all alone, one of the witches who had been silent so far looked directly at Subaru as she muttered, shaking her head in disapproval.
Mewling, throwing a tantrum, taking on everything by yourself. That's just like a sad, lonely child. No.
With a pitying voice, Sekhmet passed judgment on Subaru. Not one of the wordless witches present uttered a word of denial. Everything she had said rung true. In this moment, Subaru was nothing but a small, frail child. It was too painful to even watch.
Ha, Baru, are you crying?
As he remained on his knees, Subaru abruptly felt his head being enveloped by something soft. Through his teary vision, he saw Typhon, the olive-skinned little girl who governed Pride. Standing at his side, the little girl was gently embracing Subaru's head. Then, without moving from her spot,
It's so sad seeing you cry like this. Who's the one who made you cry?
pitying Subaru, Pride surveyed the witches gathered at the tea party with her red eyes. He sensed that the dangerous look in her gaze was slowly but surely causing the strained, tenuous equilibrium between the witches to crumble.
Was it Tella, Daffy, Milla? Or was it Nerva who, well, I guess probably not. Then was it Donna who did something bad to you again? Who was bad? Why? Why did you take me off the list right away? Even I can hurt someone, you know.
Your face goes pale just from imagining it. You're not capable. More importantly, why was I the only one who came out as a firm suspect, I wonder? It makes me want to meet the parents who raised you and question them in great detail.
Because that is a daily affair for you.
Typhon vigilantly watched the witches as they reacted. She was eager to root out the bad person who made Subaru cry. The fact that the suspects were her fellow witches was no reason for them to be exempt from her punishment. Still, these women all possessed supernatural powers that could destroy whole nations, or perhaps even the entire world itself. With all of them gathered in the same place at the same time and ready to lash out at the slightest provocation, this tea party was more dangerous than playing with matches next to a powder keg. Pride, clutching the head of the crying boy, was keen on punishing whoever had sinned. Wrath, siding with her own murderer, was adamant on making sure the quiet witch's feelings were heard. Sloth, keeping an eye on everyone equally, was lazily waiting to instantly smash whoever would make the first move. Gluttony, showing no interest in the changing circumstances, was craving to take advantage of everything going on to satisfy her hunger. Lust, maintaining her neutrality, was clutching at her own head as if to protect herself alone. Greed, with a faint trace of hatred remaining in her glimmering eyes, was inquisitively watching for any shifts in the balance of power. And finally, the witch called Satella, who was apparently not the witch of jealousy.
I love you because you gave me light, because you took my hand and you taught me about the world outside. Because when I trembled on lonely nights, you never stopped holding my hand. Because When I felt lonely, you kissed me and said that I wasn't alone. You gave me so many things. That's why I love you, because you gave me everything.
She showed no intention of cutting short her whispers of love for the kneeling Subaru, who didn't seem to register anything she said. He couldn't understand. He didn't get any of it. He'd never met Satella before, nor had he ever exchanged words with her. Everything she was saying had to be the product of her delusions. She wasn't any different than Betelgeuse, another person who had gone mad with love. All that should have been true. And yet, Subaru Natsuki knew.
What the hell? What's this inside me? I don't want any of these feelings. Don't tie me to memories I don't have. How could I, for someone like you? I hate you.
The word hate did not truly suffice. He detested this person. He didn't feel a single shred of goodwill toward her. If she was going to force such self-centered feelings of love onto him, he might as well see what kind of face she was making. It would be something to behold, no doubt. How can you do this to her? Having reached the pinnacle of a supposedly impossible contradiction, Subaru's mind went blank. The next moment, Subaru addressed the confusion. There could be no more direct way to do so.
Baru?
It was Typhon touching Subaru who was the first to notice the change. The little girl's eyes went wide as she realized that strength had drained from Subaru even as he remained kneeling within her arms. She immediately noticed something else. A large quantity of blood was dripping from his mouth. Subaru had bit his tongue.
So this is another option you have. Subaru Natsuki.
As the various witches reacted to his decision, Echidna was the only one whose cheek slackened in joy. This was Echidna's castle of dreams. Subaru's real body wasn't here. Accordingly, dying in this place was a death of the mind, which ran the risk of leaving his body an empty husk. Even after considering the possibility, Subaru tried to end it nonetheless. Death was Subaru's only hope.
You absolute idiot!
The moment Minerva noticed Subaru trying to take his own life, her face reddened as she flew into action. She raised her fist, brimming with the power of healing, and prepared to slam it into Subaru. But before she could, Typhon stood in her way. The young witch spread both arms wide, shielding Subaru behind her as much as her little body could.
Baru chose this himself. Don't get in his way, Nerva. Hurting yourself, killing yourself, hurting others, killing others. I won't allow any of it. Mental suffering is beyond me. If I can't see it, there's no way for me to know when someone's hurt. So that's why instead I never ignore any wounds I can see, even it means destroying the world.
With one determined step forward, which left a crater in the hill, Minerva slammed her fist into Typhon's face. It wasn't an exaggeration to say it hit like a cannonball that could crush whole boulders. However, the instant her fist came into contact with a living thing, the force of her blow changed from being destructive to healing. And so, only the momentum of the impact remained. With an explosive roar, Minerva's strike sent the young witch's childlike body flying. However, while she had managed to overcome the obstacle, it was not just Typhon who'd taken damage. The right arm Minerva had swung with cracked, like a shattered glass window. The Witch of Pride had deemed her actions evil. This was the result of being touched by her judgment. The pain of having lost her arm made Minerva turn her face up toward the sky, opening her mouth wide in
Piece of cake!
what was decidedly not a scream of pain. The Witch of Wrath was so sensitive to the suffering of others that she put her own aside no matter what. Her calling Subaru's methods twisted while stubbornly adhering to her own extreme ideals was truly the pot calling the kettle black.
Anyway, with this, I'll...
The next one to interfere is me.
An instant later, a blow that came from straight above knocked Minerva off the hill. After her entire body was forced into the ground, Minerva left a human-shaped indentation on the grassy plain. Lifting up her head, she looked toward Sekhmet with a face marred with rage and shouted,
Don't interfere, Sekhmet!
I can do no such thing. Pew. Emotionally, I am on the boy's side. You could probably say I'm also on Typhon's side. Phew. So you see, I have no reason not to interfere, Pot.
Faced with Sekhmet's declaration of opposition, Minerva resentfully bit her lip and scanned the area. Unfortunately for her, Daphne and Carmilla were maintaining their neutrality in this dispute, while Echidna was nothing but a detached observer awaiting the results, and Satella was…
Ah!
Subaru continued heaving up terrible amounts of blood as the witch knelt in her black dress, her voice shaking as she spoke to him. The frothy blood pouring from the boy's torn tongue was blocking his throat. Subaru was drowning in his own blood as he caught sight of Satella. Finally, I'll be free, he thought. But the moment he noticed her grieving, his relief evaporated like ephemeral mist.
Why haven't you realized that somewhere among all the things you wish to save, shouldn't there be a spot for you too?
Why did she think about Subaru that way? Just how much had Subaru soothed her heart during those delusions she must have had?
Just like many other people, fate has led you to many dead ends, but just because you have the chance to change those, why can't you see that you're someone who deserves to be saved too?
There had to be some mistake. Subaru was an unredeemable person, unable to take care of even the things that were within his reach. He couldn't even save just the people he wanted to save. He couldn't break free from his inadequacy, his immaturity. Hadn't he sworn to change? To stop being such a fool? Hadn't he decided to act cool? The part of him that was weak and the part of him that didn't want to be weak anymore warred inside him. He'd made a vow to the girl who had chosen him to be her hero. He could not go back on that vow. He had to challenge death, to desire death, to face death head on.
If she knew of this, would she be happy? Would she be sad? What would she think of Subaru, who she'd wish to be her hero? I couldn't think about it. I couldn't know about it. This was a dangerous line of thought.
Subaru Natsuki was fine with that. He did not think of himself as a person anyone would miss. He was not a human being with that kind of worth. Subaru's life was an expendable commodity. And so, like any other resource, all he needed to do was use it, and use it as much as necessary to make sure he reached the end. It was simple. In order to gain something valuable, something worthless would be exhausted. It was only natural. The decision was so obvious, anyone would do the same, wouldn't they? All Subaru had was his life. It would save the lives of precious people who needed to be saved. Lives that would never return. If he could manage that, at least, Subaru could…
What happened in the second trial? What did you see?
Trial. Shock and insufficient oxygen had severely dulled his mind. His vision was finally becoming indistinct, and the world began to flash red. White noise like television static filled his thoughts. Subaru hazily considered that the end was near. The end would finally come. With this, how many times would he have greeted death? It was annoying to count, but that was fine. Sooner or later, he would confront death so many times that he'd be tired of counting anyway. He didn't think the human mind could withstand remembering the number of deaths it had experienced. He readied his heart into steel, a heart of steel that would not be swayed by anything. Finally, Subaru's consciousness slowly, gently melted into the darkness.
I've got high hopes for you, son.
There was a sound. From somewhere on the other side of the white noise, from the catacly reflecting noises, he heard something very clear.
Come back soon.
There it was again. He heard a different sound, but this resonated in his chest in the same way.
I wanted to call you my friend.
A different sound, a sound that carried another feeling. The sounds were far from calming, but still, they were comforting.
Why, Subaru? How could you do this so easily?
A different sound again. The sound of parting filled his chest with a sense of desolation and something resembling longing, a feeling that made him want to say he was sorry.
I knew that, at the very least, you weren't that person, but…
A new sound made his chest tighten. It was impossible to remain detached and unemotional. This was a tearful sound. It was the sound of someone who he shouldn't make cry, who he had to protect, who he had to save. Sound, sound, sound.
Please show me your good parts, Subaru.
Reacting to the sound, a kind of thump rang out. The inside of his body grew hot. A sense of duty stirred within him. That sound had always supported him. And then
Thank you, Subaru.
there was a sound.
Thank you for helping me.
A sound that heralded the beginning of everything.
He wondered if they would cry. Subaru wondered if the people important to him would be sad about his death. In the world he would leave through selfishly experiencing death, would the irreplaceable people he left behind miss him? Would they be sad at his passing? As Subaru repeated return by death, would they too be chagrined? There were people who he thought of as precious, who he believed he had to protect, who he yearned to save. Did he have enough worth to make these previous people miss him? Is it fine to be that conceited? Do precious people think of a guy like me as a precious existence? Is it all right for me to believe that? To believe I'm needed by the people I want to protect, enough that they want to protect even a guy like me? Is it forgivable to even wish for it? To wish that even a guy like me is worth enough that people would cry if they lost me, that they'd reach a hand out because they want to save me? Is it all right for me to even think it? To think I don't want to die? To think I don't want to give up? To say this is the only way? To think I don't want to become the cornerstone that protects the future of the people precious to me and then disappear? To think I want to be with those precious people in the future I've protected together? Is it all right to think like that? Do I have that kind of worth? If I really do, I don't want to die.
A clump of blood made a sound as it fell. There was a sound of air leaking out, and it brought along a different sound. His breathing eased. His consciousness was returning. His hazy vision had begun to return, and with it color returned to the world. And then
I knew that's how you really felt all along, you jerk!
as he tenaciously crawled, the face of Raph came into focus, right as she healed him with a headbutts. Subaru coughed, spitting out clumps of blood. He rolled onto his back, face up as he looked at the sky. He made repeated, ragged breaths, earnestly gasping in search of oxygen, the fuel needed for life. His heart had no time to feel shame at how lowly and pathetic he looked as he clung to life. Just,
Am I worthy of living? Me who can't die? Do I have any value outside of dying?
through return by death, he had saved people he held dear from horrific fates. Subaru Natsuki had believed his only value was in the results he had obtained at the cost of his life. But was it right to think that this was not so?
Can I think that a human being like me has value outside of return by death? Is it all right for me to think that the people I care for me too?
I wouldn't know any such thing.
Minerva gave Subaru's frail question that very curt reply. She was in a terrible state. Her arm was shattered, and there were bruises from blunt trauma all over her body. But she calmly rose to her feet, gritted her teeth at those wounds, and regenerated herself. Doing this, the Witch of Wrath stood solidly on her own 2 feet, crossing her arms as she looked down at Subaru. And then,
Don't ask me what worth you have, but that girl wants you to live so much. Plus, you saw in the second trial yourself, didn't you?
But the second trial showed me the mistakes, the sins I committed.
What are you, an idiot? That wasn't to make you take responsibility for worlds gone wrong. That was to show you just how sad people got because of the results of your mistakes. That's your answer right there, isn't it?
they returned to the back of his mind. He remembered. He remembered crying voices. He remembered voices clenched in regret. He remembered strong voices sending him off. He remembered all the people sending him off so kindly. He remembered whispers of love from those who'd believed in him. He remembered the genesis, the trigger of his struggle against fate. He remembered a life that supposedly had nothing awaiting him. Subaru remembered he'd been invited into that world with nothing, with the things he was supposed to have falling from his fingertips. To prove that someone like him had worth, he had to keep struggling. And as he kept struggling to protect those precious things he had gained, he thought he had no choice but to walk an even lonelier path. I'd thought to myself, It's all others given unto me. Is it all right for me to think it's not so? People will cry for my sake? People will lament their powerlessness for my sake? People wish to see the future with me, together? Precious people will give me the privilege of standing and smiling at their side? Surely it was impossible for someone stubbornly walking a lonely path to the very end, as Subaru had been doing, to receive such a privilege. With a heart of steel, a mental state that swayed before nothing, he was disconnected from the softness that would have allowed him to smile. Then was it all right to believe that the choice to whittle away his own heart, deciding it was the price he had to pay for the future of those precious to him, that the choice to desperately struggle to protect his own heart, thus becoming unable to walk his chosen path, to believe that neither need be taken and that there was another, greedier choice, was it all right to believe and to want it?
I permit it.
These were Subaru's thoughts he had in no way spoken aloud. And yet, there was a reply to those thoughts. Still flat on the ground and face up, he let his head tumble sideways. Over where Minerva was standing still, someone was kneeling on the grassy field. Her face was drenched with tears, but still she smiled. Even then, Subaru could not see this face, which was covered by shadow. Obstructed by that curtain of darkness, he could not see the expression turned toward him, and yet he knew she was smiling.
I was saved by you. That is why I permit that you can be saved. And it is my hope to be saved by you.
Satella's words, her voice, and her smile permeated the cracks in his heart. Subaru covered his face with his hands. Tears flowed, sobs spilled out. He continued to hide his weeping face. That moment, he didn't want anyone, especially her, to see him like that, for the sake of his meager stubbornness.
I was surprised that Minerva broke through Typhon and Sekhmet's obstruction, but I find this action by the two of you even more unexpected.
Echidna made that small comment, ignoring Subaru as he covered his weeping face. After all, before Echidna was a spectacle of talons stretching from the black lacquered coffin to restrain Typhon while the coffin's mistress, Daphne, faced off against Sekhmet. Daphne responded to Echidna's words with a low, throaty laugh. Released from her restraints, she stepped barefoot onto the grassy field, tilting her hips as she stuck out her tongue.
There's no mistake that Daphne's compatibility with Tai is number rule. The centipede coffin has no head for thinking, because it's Daphne's arms and legs. And its compatibility with Tai's authority is the worst.
Oh, Daffy! Out of my way! None you! Oh!
So, that means you are holding me back yourself, Pew. I'm not Echidna, but why you're doing something like this? Hugh. Unlike Minerva, I do not understand your reason for getting involved.
Glancing as Typhon writhed under the coffin, Sekhmet made another weighty sigh. With Typhon taken hostage, the mightiest of the witches apparently could not act rashly. Responding to Sekhmet's words, Daphne shook her head, braids swaying as she said nah, and laughed.
Subaru, you see, killed the white whale, then talked big and told Daphne that the great rabbit was next. So, I figured I wanted him to last at least long enough to challenge it.
A most fascinating opinion. Certainly, if he puts his mind to it, he can achieve such a feat. You must understand this as well. But Daphne, do you want the great rabbit to be destroyed?
Not really. From the moment they were born from Daphne, those children's empty stomachs and Daphne's empty stomach weren't related anymore. Where and how it's destroyed makes no difference. But all the same, Daphne might be interested in just how the great rabbit, Daphne's own inexhaustible hunger, reaches its end.
You see, she seemed to say, sipping her own drool.
If Daphne is satisfied at how it ends, that would be a happiness unknown to Daphne.
To Daphne, who was tormented by an inexhaustible sense of emptiness, satisfaction was a dream eternally out of reach. And if the great rabbit was a reflection of her own endless hunger, it existed as the incarnation of her cravings. Not that Daphne herself held any sentimentality toward it, but Daphne harbored an interest, a curiosity beyond hunger. To Echidna, this was a most satisfying answer. Smiling at this, Echidna nodded, turning her gaze to the other person to whom she had referred to, the Witch of Lust, standing apart from the group.
Carmilla, what about you? Do you have a reason like Daphne's? I wonder.
What are you trying to say, Echidna?
It is very simple. You were the one who called him back from the brink of death, weren't you? I do not understand the reason you would go as far as employing your faceless bride authority. You must have called forth countless bonds for him. I thought you were not fond of him. And so, I wish to ask, why have you done this?
When Echidna posed her question, Carmilla hid her mouth under the stole wrapped around her neck, glancing around in search of aid from the witches around them. She wanted someone other than herself to come rescue her. However, there was no witch in that place who would fall under the lovely Carmilla's charms. Left with no other choice, Carmilla leaned forward, gazing at Echidna with upturned eyes.
Now, reason, really? I'm satisfied with that boy refusing Echidna's, advances, so even if others fight, as long as I'm safe, and just... Our love is important, right? You mustn't hold it in. Contempt. You mustn't. That boy, he thinks he doesn't want to see it, when love is right there. So I won't let him deny what's there. And besides, I really hate not repaying a debt.
Her words were halting and plodding. However, only at the end did Carmilla assert herself loud and clear. Receiving this, Echidna dropped her shoulders as she looked at the faces of the various witches in turn.
Sekhmet and Typhon tried to honor his will. Minerva, honoring his life, healed him. Daphne cooperated, extending his life so she might watch his battle. Carmilla, who'd kept her back turned to him, used her authority to make him understand love. 10 now, then, putting each and every person's various assertions together, all of you were trying to help Subaru Natsuki.
The witches stood still, neither affirming nor denying Echidna's assessment. Sloth, pride, wrath, gluttony, lust, all stood still. Seeing the witches like that, greed twisted her cheeks in amusement. And then,
This is indeed most interesting. Do you not think so? Do you not think so?
she posed this question, casting it towards Subaru, looking haggard as he wobbled to his feet. His head was terribly heavy. His entire body was languid, as if he had a high fever. Even then, his tears had not fully dried. Wiping from his cheek what remained of his tears with his sleeve, Subaru, somehow managing to stand on his own 2 feet, surveyed the faces of Echidna and the other witches with insipid eyes.
Really, the hell is wrong with you all?
It was a question, a natural question for a puny human to have after meeting a witch.
Curiosity, sympathy, compassion, sense of duty, expectation, hatred. Can't say I really understand or agree with the reasons you had to take my side. I get why they call you all witches.
From this insulting attitude, I take it that your willpower has returned?
Dunno.
From the words that had trickled out of him, Echidna winked and bluntly laid out Subaru's mental state.
I decided there were things I had to do. That hasn't changed even now. And I'd resolve that to accomplish them, this was the only way. But
Haltingly, Subaru spoke, not to anyone else in particular, but to himself.
my resolve, when I came to this place, the trial broke it. Just when I thought you were lending me a hand, I found out what you really thought. Then even Satella appeared. My head's all a mess. You're all self-serving. I decided what it is I had to do. But then...
After coming this far, if he clung to a supposedly expendable life, what then? After coming this far, if he yearned for life when using it was his only option, what then? After coming this far, if he internalized that he was loved, What was it he ought to do?
Now I don't know what I should do anymore.
Logic pleaded that if he did not desire death, he could save nothing via return by death. His memories told him that as death piled higher, the flood of tears from those who had lost Subaru grew greater. Without his death, someone would be sad, and yet with his death, someone would be sad also.
Now, I ask you once more, Subaru Natsuki.
With Subaru unable to sew his thoughts together, Echidna lowered her voice, speaking solemnly. When he lifted his face, Echidna was standing right in front of him, slowly nodding.
If I cooperate with you, the people you absolutely wish to save will arrive at a future in which they are saved. You will have no more reason to worry. In extremis, I will find the answers to the problems that you must directly confront. All you need do is put them into effect, thus climbing over the walls. If you are afraid, you must continue to worry. One choice you have is entrusting those worries to me. I will not fault you for this. I will welcome it. Therefore, I now ask you once more. Since you do not understand what to do, how about letting me lead you by the hand? I promise, I will bring you to the future you desire without fail.
This spoken, Echidna stretched her hand out to Subaru. If he took that hand, a pact would be formed. Echidna would cooperate with Subaru in accordance with her words. It was an idea he'd rejected out of emotion a short while before. But Echidna's proposal hit the mark. If he truly wanted that future, he ought to sacrifice himself in a true sense and use her for that purpose. He ought to take that hand. If he did not fear being hurt, and resolved to swallow down thoughts of pain and suffering as he continued to fight, he ought to take that hand. Hence,
Echidna, I'm afraid of being hurt. I hate pain, suffering, and sadness. I don't want to go through painful times, and I don't want to watch someone other than me go through bad things either. I don't want to die. So because it's predicated on sacrifice, I won't take your hand anymore.
not even Subaru knew what he might be able to do. But he could not walk the path Echidna had presented. He could not choose it, for he was aware that he did not. ReZero, Starting Life in Another World by Tapa Nagatsuki, casted six-tale novel. Please subscribe to our channel.
Want to die. He, who had thought dying was the only service he could contribute, had learned that there were people who would accept him without him having to die. Subaru Natsuki was not a man who had value only in death, for the people who regretted Subaru's death would not have done so had they seen value in his death. No, what they regretted was... I don't know exactly what everyone felt like they lost yet, but I think I want to find out. If I understand that, I think I can repay everyone in a way besides death.
But that is a path of thorns. The shortest way to the future is to choose to use your life as a tool and cut it open. It would have been better if you offered your heart alone. To reject this and to preserve both your own heart and someone else's future in your hands at the same time is most difficult. And moreover,
Echidna cut off her words with a pause of her breath. Then the most charming smile he had seen on the witch to that point came over her.
it is greed.
Affirming its greed, the Witch of Greed joyfully accepted Subaru's judgment. Subaru did not understand the thinking of the witch, who seemed so happy even though he had rejected her proposal. But
What is true is that you came and saved me a bunch of times over. Even if in the bottom of your heart you think of me as nothing more than a lab animal, that much is true.
it was undeniable that for some travails Echidna's existence had lent support to his heart, allowing him to overcome them. Therefore, his gratitude for the times when she'd saved his heart was also definite.
Foolish, pitiable Garfield fears the outside world.
Eh?
What he saw during the first trial has bound his heart ever since. If you are to get through this situation with your own power, it will surely be necessary to break that curse.
Echidna,
What? Just sour grapes from a busy body. I would rather you did not think all those other witches are good people deep down, but that Echidna is a bad person to the bitter end or the like. Whatever your thoughts, I am a girl, and it is the truth that I have some degree of fondness for you.
Speaking rapidly, Echidna gave Subaru's chest a light poke with the hand he had not taken. Then she turned her back, her white hair swaying as the Witch of Greed put distance between them. During that time, Daphne was using her coffin to cuddle Typhon up to Sekhmet, and Carmilla had returned to the fold as well. Seeing the witches like that made Subaru sigh.
You really are incomprehensible monsters. I don't think I could ever come to like or understand you. These were his true, unvarnished thoughts. The values each witch harbored never wavered, something that would never sit well with Subaru. No, that was true for any normal person. Thus, Subaru could not understand the witches, nor could he cooperate with them. But just like he thought with Echidna, understanding and gratitude were wholly different things. Thanks for trying to let me die. Thanks for not letting me die. Thanks for making me hear the voices that are precious to me. Thanks for all that.
He bowed his head to the witches, one by one. Pride smiled. Sloth sighed. Lust grimaced in disgust. Gluttony licked her lips in arousal, and wrath turned her face aside. Then he turned around toward Satella, who was kneeling on the hill, and began walking to her. As Subaru walked over, Satella looked up at him, her breath catching. Her body trembled in fear and unease. Why was it that someone he had so dreaded filled his chest with such warmth? What were these emotions he continued to harbor for someone he'd never come in contact with? It was a mystery with no answer, but this dream castle had already given Subaru too many. With not a single answer to that question, Subaru opted to keep worrying about it as he crouched down, extending his hand to the witch. Seemingly bewildered, Satella stared at the hand offered to her.
I don't know who you are. I don't know why you told me you love me, and I don't know the meaning of you telling me that I saved you.
Ah,
But it's still a fact that you saved me by giving me return by death. It's also true that I've relied on it to get me this far. To me, return by death is one choice, I suppose. And you're telling me not to depend on it, but to love myself, right? I'm not saying it's as cut and dry as that, but there's no mistaking that you gave me return by death because you don't want me to die.
That was why.
Just like you said, I'm going to try loving myself just a little more. I'll take better care of myself. I don't know what will happen because of it, but that's fine.
it's all right.
Yeah, compared with death, it ain't nothing.
Responding to Satella's concerned voice, Subaru made a smile, frail as it was. Seemingly relieved by that expression, Satella took Subaru's hand. The colors of the blue sky and the green, grassy field faded. Subaru Natsuki was being freed from the castle of dreams.
I'm returning outside, huh? Even then, it was unclear how and why. He had arrived at that place. What should he do first when he got back? His mind was in chaos over even an issue like that.
Don't worry all by yourself. Do it together, with the people who consider you precious. Struggle together with the people who you do not wish to die, the people who do not wish to let you die. And when even that fails, do not forget to fear death when you die. Do not forget that when you die, it makes people sad.
Satella's voice grew distant, and yet it clawed terribly at Subaru's heart. The palm connecting him to her was hot. He felt a longing that told him he mustn't take his hand away.
He called out to her, but his voice would not come out. His voice could not call her, Satella. If he called her that, he wouldn't be able to reject her any longer. He would lose to his wanting to accept her. His soul kept on screaming at him, asking how he should deal with that emotion.
The sky was falling. The earth was splitting. Light flooded in, and the scene around them had already completely changed. All signs of the witches had vanished, too. The world consisted of Subaru and Satella alone. There was a vanishing, and then there was a beginning. Still unable to speak, Subaru stared at the Satella right in front of him. Suddenly, the curtain of darkness lifted. The subconscious veil that had hidden from Subaru what he had not wished to see became transparent, making visible what rested across it. And then, when he saw the face peering at him from below, Subaru drew in his breath. Looking at Subaru, Satella made her silver hair sway, narrowing her violet eyes, and as tears coursed from the corners of those eyes.
And someday, you will come to kill me, yes?
She vanished. She was gone. The world was being erased, and he could no longer see even the girl who was right before his eyes. The only thing that was still certain was the warmth within his palm. And so, Subaru gripped it tight.
I will save you. You'll see.
That was all he said to the lovely girl whom he could no longer see. Chapter 2. Ignoring the odds. The first sensation he became aware of was something rough rubbing against his cheek. As he regained consciousness, his entire being was dominated by a sense of extreme languor. His body felt sluggish, as if it was sand coursing through his veins rather than blood. When he opened his mouth in search of air, his parched lips refused to let go of each other and tore apart. The pain and the taste of blood on the tip of his tongue startled him. His slightly bleary eyes rolled around as he forced open his heavy eyelids. His vision cleared, and the world gained color. And then, the sight of a pitch-black land dragon leaped into his eyes.
Oh, it's you!
There, by his side, heaving rasping breaths and watching him with two narrowed amber eyes, was Subaru's beloved land dragon, Patlash. She extended her head, continuing to lick the sleepy Subaru in an apparent show of concern.
So that rough tongue belongs to you, huh? Where are we?
Subaru suspended the touchy-feely wake-up call, rendering Patlash silent. Lying at his favorite dragon's side, Subaru looked around the area, drawing his brows together when he saw he was outside the tomb. He remembered the encounter with the witches that had occurred just prior in the world of dreams. The condition for being invited to Echidna's tea party was to enter the tomb. According to previous experience, he should have woken up in the stonework room within the tomb. Instead, Subaru was resting his body against the stone wall at the entrance to the tomb.
Someone brought me out, but who? Wait, please, wait, dear. Patlash, wait a huff. If you run off and I lose track of you, I'll be in such trouble.
The question Subaru murmured aloud was interrupted by a pathetic voice echoing through the nighttime forest. The speaker was out of breath, tripping as he earnestly ran up the stone stairs of the tomb. Then, when he spotted Patlash on the steps above, he was clearly exhausted as well as relieved.
Ah, I'm so glad to think you were in a place like air. Mr. Natsuki? You sure are in high spirits on a night like this, Otto. What are you up to? Burglary? I shall return that very same question to you. What are you up to? For that matter, you are hardly unrelated to why I am in these dire straits to begin with, Mr. Natsuki.
Otto's shoulders dropped as he addressed Subaru, who was sitting on the ground with his legs spread out. Seeing Otto, Subaru had reflexively joked around like usual, but he got down to business in short order.
I'm not unrelated. Wait, what happened? I mean, our dear Patlash. In fact, Patlash went wild back at the stables. As these are unfamiliar surroundings, I untied her thinking I might take her for a refreshing stroll, and poof, off she ran.
Otto made a gaze of protest toward her, but the land dragon in question had her face turned away from him, her expression one of lofty indifference.
She literally has no eyes for me. At any rate, she rushed out of the stables, and I was nervous that if she ran off entirely, my situation would become grave, bringing us to the present, you see. So she came right to me then. Well, Patlash. You must be the sort to get lonely quick. It did not appear to be mere longing for you, Mr. Natsuki. I mean...
Crossing his arms, Otto narrowed his eyes, suggestively turning them toward Patlash. Subaru followed suit, squinting as he gazed at the land dragon's scales, which seemed to melt into the night. That was when he realized it. Patlash's black scales had wounds that oozed with blood. Surely the hard scales covering her body could not be easily harmed. And more than that, her injuries looked like they were inflicted internally, rather than externally. Instantly, the stated rules for entering the tomb rose in the back of Subaru's mind. When someone not qualified enters the tomb, they get rejected. As a matter of fact, that rule was the cause of Roswell's grave injuries from when he had entered the tomb. There was no mercy for any violators of that edict, and it was effective not only against people, but even against land dragons. Don't tell me you got all hurt like this to pull me out of there. Murmuring, Subaru touched his own shoulder. There were traces of saliva left on his sports jacket. There was dirt on his back and hips from being dragged too. It was Patlash who had brought Subaru outside, in spite of her wounds from the penalty for entering the tomb. Subaru's beloved dragon had brought him out.
Why'd you do something stupid like, when I woke up, I could've just come outside on my... You didn't need to drag me out and get all hurt like this.
Unable to keep looking at her seeping wounds, Subaru hung his head. Pat reached out once more, rubbing the tip of her nose against Subaru. Subaru couldn't tell what she meant by it. Unable to exchange words with her, the flow of thoughts and feelings ran only in one direction between them. He was always the one being saved.
Otto. What is it? If I am in the way, perhaps it would be best if I went somewhere for the... Can you ask Pat why she saved me?
There was only one way to find out what Pat truly thought. Otto's blessing of language. This power allowed him to converse with birds and animals, both of which could not normally engage in human speech. Surely, with this, it was possible to find out how Pat felt. However, faced with Subaru's request, Otto twisted his lips and put on a disagreeable look.
To be honest, I cannot wrap my head around it. Mr. Natsuki, are you trying to be funny? Do I look like I'm trying to make a joke right now? Even in such a sorry state, I feel like Mr. Natsuki of all people might make some sort of unfunny jest, and I must admit that I do hope you are joking. You truly cannot tell?
When Otto replied in a low voice, Subaru tried to respond, only to be overwhelmed by Otto's gaze. Otto was looking at Subaru with an incredulous look, as if he was watching something ridiculous. Subaru felt like he was overlooking something rather big, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Seeing Subaru's confusion, Otto let out an exasperated sigh as he touched his hand to his cheek.
My blessing is not as omnipotent as you believe it to be, Mr. Natsuki. Mere transmission of thoughts differs from translation, so asking me to bridge the gap in this exchange is asking for the impossible. Your eyes say to try anyway. Very well, though I wonder if there is a point, really.
Though his sullen dismay trickled out, Otto grudgingly accepted Subaru's request. Otto gently stroked Patlash's back as she snuggled up to Subaru. A high-pitched, raspy breath came out of that very Otto's throat. Through the power of the blessing of language, he had converted human speech into land dragon speech. Patlash responded to his call, turned her head toward Otto, and emitted a similar, high-pitched call. Otto responded to this with a high-pitched call, and so it went, back and forth.
I am finished, but, it is difficult. How do I translate this into human terms? Don't keep me in suspense. Just tell me, I'm begging you. I am not attempting to keep you in. This really puts me in a bind. Then again, would conveying this message be considered an extremely strange form of kindness?
Scratching his head, Otto repeatedly searched his thoughts for words that he would find acceptable. Finally, after noticing Subaru nervously clenching his teeth, he sighed with what felt like an air of resignation.
It is closest to don't make me. Say something like that, I believe. Eh?
Scratching his cheek with a blush on his face, Otto averted his gaze as Subaru widened his eyes at those words. Though Subaru waited for him to continue, Otto offered nothing more, or so it seemed, but Otto raised his eyebrows toward the speechless Subaru.
I mean, she said, don't make me. Say something like that. I thought she might say as much. Not making her say, what's that supposed to mean? Exactly what it sounds like. If I was to add my own personal impression, it'd be with an air of, do I really need to say it for you to understand?
Otto's statement only further perplexed Subaru. Though he was being asked, don't you understand? He really didn't. What was it exactly that Subaru didn't understand then?
Overcome with worry whether a certain person is in peril and unable to hold still, she comes rushing out to mount a rescue regardless of what wounds she may sustain, staying right at his side until he awakens, smiling at him in relief when he opens his eyes. In such a case, be it human or land dragon, I believe the feelings behind those actions are much the same. And even if it wasn't Patlash, you would still get don't make me say it. To not notice when her demeanor demonstrates so much is something beyond being merely dense. I suppose that ignorance is bliss.
Otto, looking exasperated from the very bottom of his heart, made Subaru appreciate the depth of his own foolishness. Next, when he looked at Patlash, who was right by his side, the land dragon stared at Subaru with a gentle gaze, drawing her nose close to rub against his neck once more. By nature, he stroked the land dragon's head, gently petting her hard, rock-like scales.
I see. You love me, don't you? So you're in love with me, I see.
Thump, he felt, as something that had been caught inside his chest seemed to fall away. Subaru's acknowledgement brought a neigh out of Patlash, and the strength of her rubbing increased as if she was trying to conceal a blush. The sensation scraped his skin, but when Subaru tried to open his mouth to protest,
Uh.
abruptly hot droplets coursed down Subaru's cheeks, tears. They were tears. From somewhere in the very back of his consciousness, something urgently welled up and came pouring out. He rushed to touch his hands to his cheeks, but he was too late to hide it. Otto gaped right at him.
Mesmer Natsuki? Breaking into tears from realizing your land dragon is fond of you is a little. Your row, this isn't. It's just. The timing is too darn perfect. Shit, right when I was having doubts, the answer came flying into my face. It wasn't fair. This came at the perfect time. That was Patlash for you. Too crafty, too cunning. Internally papering things over with such foolish words, Subaru desperately fought to hold back tears. He recalled how at the witch tea party, he had confessed his true desire of not wanting to die. He confessed, too, his greed. His desire to be with the people precious to him was just as strong as his desire to protect them, and how he yearned to know if the people important to him thought he was something precious to them. Who'd have thought you'd be the first one to tell me? Thanks, Patslash.
As if to reply to the faithful love trained toward him, Subaru poured his feelings into his palm as he stroked his beloved dragon. Satisfied with his touch, Patslash lifted her head in a ladylike manner. Moreover, the swaying of her tail showed without a doubt that she was in a good mood.
Now that you have reaffirmed your bonds with Patlash, are you all right? Yeah, thanks to her. Sorry to cause you a lot of trouble too, Wadaya mean all right. Mentally, but also physically. I can tell just by looking that you entered the tomb. You collapsed when you went in to save Amelia. So what was it this time? It is more than enough to make one worry. So you were worried about me. By any chance, are you in love with me too? Could you please not say something creepy such as that? Surely you are not so unsatisfied with being loved by Plashlatch you feel like asking this of all your acquaintances. Some reason I can't. To be honest, right now, I'd love even one extra message of support and consolation, but... Yes. I am quite happy to see that you have returned to your usual form. I believe that, for the sake of my future, I will be supporting you, Mr. Natsuki, even to the bitter end.
Shuddering in the face of Subaru's eccentric advance warning, Otto thrust both hands forward in a visible attempt to stop him. It was so very mercantile of him to use the roundabout phrase, "for the sake of my future."
But if that precondition should come into question, and I find myself in peril, I shall flee with all available haste. Please, keep that in mind.
It certainly was a heartless statement, but drawing a line was a necessary ritual for tacit consent. Even though he'd said it like that, Otto's good nature was on full display.
Yeah, I get it. You're... Subaru, about to give a nod to Otto's realistic point of view, stopped. Something felt off, and immediately realizing just what it was, he let out a little ha. What is it? Just remembered something. Yeah, that's right. With Otto giving him a suspicious look, Subaru nodded several times over, lifting his face toward the night sky. Amid the loop that had begun in that very sanctuary, Subaru had cooperated with Otto several times over. And during that time, Subaru had many opportunities to observe him. Hence, if you find yourself in peril, you'll flee with all haste. Is it right? Yes, but of course. I bear no duty to Mr. Natsuki and others to go quite that You won't run. Yeah?
Subaru murmured to Otto, who was trying to lightheartedly adopt the role of a realist. Then, when Otto widened his eyes, Subaru faced him directly as he continued.
You won't leave me and run, Otto. This was the man who hadn't faltered in the face of Garfield's threats, who had come to rescue Subaru from imprisonment. This was the man who had shielded Subaru from a bestial Garfield resisting him together with the villagers. However unfeeling he might act, Subaru knew the truth. Otto, that's because you're my friend.
Having received encouragement from Otto and Patslash, Subaru gained a moment of mental respite. To be blunt, he still couldn't entirely digest what had happened in the Castle of Dreams. Even so, he chewed it over bit by bit, using it as fuel to drive himself onward. Otto had continued to let out little grumbles as he departed, with Patlish somehow looking like a girl dragged off by her hair as they left the tomb. Seeing off the two people, or rather one person and one steed, Subaru, left behind after claiming to want to feel the nighttime breeze, slowly turned back toward the tomb. Same as before, the tomb of the Witch of Greed stood there, illuminated by the pale moonlight. Parting ways with the witch who he'd sought to rely on was a deeply painful matter to Subaru. The word serious blow did not quite suffice, but cutting ties with the witch had been necessary, however heavy a blow. He couldn't pigeonhole her as an evil being. However, she was someone with whom he could not see eye to eye. The same went for Minerva and the other witches, and so too for Satella, aka Jealousy.
It's fine that she told me to love myself more, but how the heck should I go about relying on the people precious to me? I wondered if that was asking him to be honest with them. Yet, it was none other than Satella herself who had forbidden him from doing this. Or rather, if he went by what he had learned in the conversations within the dream, it was the witch personality that had forbidden Subaru from speaking of return by death. Everyone there had asserted there was a discrepancy between Satella and the Witch of Jealousy. If that was so, then the promise at the very end had been with, I've got to put that on the back burner for now, damn it. What he needed was a way to break through this stalemate of a situation, or at the very least, he needed to grab hold of a single strand that would lead him to a way out. The trigger at the mansion is based on when I return, in which case I have to get a handle on the issues in the sanctuary first. That means the trial, Garfield, and Roswell's Book of Knowledge, Each of the individual issues raised before him were troublesome in and of themselves, but the greatest difficulty was in how closely each related to the others. In particular, he still couldn't forget his shock at how Roswell's grandiose plans factored in even death. Roswell knew of Subaru's return by death, or more precisely, he knew Subaru could loop. Knowing that Subaru had the power to turn time back, he sought to employ that for his own objective. His goal was to make what was written in his Book of Knowledge a reality. For that, Roswell made snow fall on the sanctuary, turning the place into a feeding ground for the demon beast known as the Great Rabbit. Beyond that, there was the barrier that would not be lifted until the trial was overcome, preventing the residents of the sanctuary from evacuating. And Garfield, whose thinking grew more obstinate with each repetition. Every time Subaru had looped, he found Garfield standing in a different position. Once, he had pressed Subaru to take the trial, displaying a cooperative stance toward resolving the sanctuary's issues. In hindsight, that had all been an act so as not to convey that he himself was opposed to resolving those problems. The more Subaru pursued the sanctuary's liberation, the sterner Garfield's measures became. It was difficult for Subaru to forget his anger from when Garfield had bared his fangs toward Otto, Ram, and the people of Earlham Village, but Garfield had also saved Subaru's life. Accordingly, the discordant sense he felt toward Garfield's true thoughts had deepened with each new start of the loop. Having received Echidna's final words of advice, those feelings had grown stronger and deeply barbed. Foolish, pitiable Garfield fears the outside world, was it? It was already clear to him that Garfield must have taken the trial at some point in the past. As a result, Garfield had become an apostle of greed, gaining command rights over Ryuzu and the other replicas. If it was his past that made Garfield fearful of the outside world, if that was the curse that bound him to the sanctuary, it was an issue that Subaru had thought of once, only to discard it. He told himself it was not necessary to delve too deeply into who Garfield was as a person. In so doing, he had once again averted his eyes from a pressing issue in front of him. In the end, it really is important to learn, But knowing nothing but, that still gets me a failing grade. It was not possible to overcome the wall that was Garfield without knowing his true intent. But even if he could do so, the problems of the sanctuary's barrier and Roswell still remained. And to break through that worst of all combinations, in the end, clearing the tomb to secure our line of retreat is the most pressing business, When he put everything in order, he inevitably wound up back at the very beginning. Clearing the tomb was an indispensable condition for resolving the issues of the sanctuary, the real problem being the number of remaining trials. With the horrible time I had in it, did I end up clearing the second trial or not? Under the rubric of the event he'd come to know as Behold the Unknowable Present. Subaru arrived at the worlds where he had chosen differently, experiencing what one might call a series of parallel worlds. These were glimpses into worlds beyond hell, impaling Subaru with particular cruelty. After driving Subaru to lamentation with various second guesses and countless regrets, how exactly had the trial graded him?
Audibly cracking the bones of his neck, Subaru powerfully exhaled as his footsteps echoed through the corridor in the tomb. His largest reason for sending Otto and Patlash back ahead of him was so he could do this and check for himself which trial the tomb would guide him to, the second or the third. In other words, he was challenging the possibility he might have to behold the unknowable presence once more. The scenes frightened Subaru more than anything in this world, and his mind shuddered at the possibility of seeing them again. Even so, he could not ignore them. Forgetting them, or running from them, was out of the question. He had no choice but to face them. He bore a duty to do so. And to fulfill that duty, he stepped strongly, his movements in line with his resolve. But the very next moment, his vision swayed. Losing his balance from the sudden dizziness, Subaru bumped into a wall and fell right to the floor. An intense wave of nausea hit him, stirring his brain. Unable to resist it, he got on all fours and vomited onto the floor.
Yuga! Ha! Ah!
His thoughts were all tangled. He felt as if a hole had opened in his skull and an electrode had been thrust into it, frying his brain. No matter how much he vomited, he didn't feel any better. Instinctively, Subaru rushed outside, tumbling through the corridor as he did so.
What was that just now?
Wiping tears from his eyes, Subaru looked back up at the tomb in a daze. The tomb was unchanged, as was the tranquility in the air, aside from the fact that it seemed oddly malevolent. When he tried to crawl closer to approach the tomb once more, Subaru's limbs were constrained by a painful sense of aversion. He was being rejected. That sensation brought him to a different realization, linking the two like a bolt of lightning. It was a simple explanation. This was what had happened to Patlish's body but a brief time earlier. It simply meant the same rejection that had hurt Rosewall was now hitting Subaru. A simple thing, but it demonstrated a most crucial fact. Namely that
I've lost the qualification to challenge the tomb? You're kidding me. That can't...
Standing up, Subaru gazed upon the tomb as if trying to reject that conclusion. However, his feet would not take the single step that would lead him inside. He instinctively understood both the tomb's rejection and his loss of qualification. From the back of his mind arose the image of a white-haired witch clad in a black dress for a funeral.
Why that malicious little...
Certainly, the witch had posed the question to Subaru on their parting. She asked him to choose which hand he would take, hers or Satella's, and Subaru had chosen Satella. If this was payback for his choice...
Damn you! Just how much of a rotten personality do you have, Echidna the crappy witch?
Subaru wrung out an angry shout into the night sky, howling at a witch who surely could not hear him. But however much he yelled, wailed, or raged, it would not change what had happened. Subaru Natsuki had lost his qualification to challenge the trial, and thus could no longer liberate the sanctuary. To Subaru, it was a decision that required courage identical to that for challenging the tomb, the trial that thrust his mistakes before him in the worst possible manner, making even his legs recoil in fear. It was enough to make him question whether it wasn't just his fear that had prevented him from going back into the tomb. However, that was not in fact the case. Fear had not been the reason why his legs refused to move, and his decision was fueled by the same desire to overcome the deadlock that had made him push past his fear to begin with. If the possibilities of challenging the tomb and gaining the cooperation of the witch had both been exhausted, the remaining choices dwindled to one.
Visiting so late at night, such as Thuria's is an unexpectedly happy thing.
Lying in bed, speaking these words and greeting Subaru with a smile in his clown makeup was the man. No, this was the devil Rosewall El Mathers, a creature harboring plots and an obsession so great that Subaru likened him to a monster more than man. Propping his back up with a pillow, Rosewall was sitting up, his white-dabbed face illuminated by the flame of a burning candle inside the room, giving rise to a bizarre atmosphere that emphasized his inhumanity. With that devil before him, Subaru dry swallowed and forced down his nervousness. The only choice left for Subaru was to rely upon the Roswell before him. However, that didn't mean he intended to break through every issue facing the sanctuary together. Given Subaru's mental attitude and his ultimate objectives, that was impossible. Subaru could not forgive Roswell for slaying Raymond Garfield with his own hands, nor his sacrificing the villagers. Roswell was similarly unlikely to abide by Subaru's way of life when it ill-suited his own objectives. Accordingly, what began from there was an elaborate ruse between two people whose hearts could absolutely not forgive the other.
And you have come out of your way to sneak in at such a late hour. What is it that you bring? Perhaps some seductive, persuasive phrases that might arouse my free interest.
Well, you're not wrong that I'm trying to sweet-talk you. There's something I want to ask you. Is there a way to slip out of the sanctuary while ignoring the tomb?
Faced with Subaru's difficult-to-articulate opening move, Roswell's smile gained a frosty air to it. He cracked open the side of the lips, which formed that clownish smile, and with his yellow eye, Roswell beheld Subaru as he spoke.
Subaru, is this the first time you have asked me this?
The simple act of asking of that question established they were fully aware exactly where the other stood. Roswell knew that Subaru looped. Subaru knew that Roswell knew. Now that both understood this, it was possible to play the conversation card. With this in mind, Subaru shrugged his shoulders in a provocative gesture.
It's the first time I've asked this question. At this point, it's stupid trying to count how many times we've been feeling the other out like this, though.
Is that so? I see. From your demeanor, may I take it as meaning that?
Well, who's to say?
Averting his gaze, Subaru delayed revealing the conclusion Roswell sought. Subaru did not let the faint whiff of hope residing in Roswell's eyes during that exchange escape his notice. Noticing a change that slight was an advantage that return by death provided him. Roswell, who knew only the fact that looping existed, had no way of understanding what emotions Subaru brought with him from having looped previously. Hence,
I'm still in the middle of trial and error. Cooperation from you would be a big help, though.
even if Subaru pretended to be moving in accordance with Roswell's will, there was no way for Roswell to know it was an act. The book of knowledge in his possession did not account for the finer details of Subaru's actions. He was able to deduce that from Roswell's statements prior to the assault by the Great Rabbit. In the end, Roswell only had the gist of things spelled out for him. In other words, if Subaru played his role perfectly, he ought to be able to deceive Roswell and lead him around by the nose. That was certainly a possibility.
And part of that trial and error involves breaking past the sanctuary while ignoring the tomb. If so, that is quite timid of you. With the authority you possess, surely you can challenge it an infinite number of times and overcome any difficulties. To cast that aside midway is a deficiency of resolve. Is it new?
Being flexible is definitely an advantage. Just like you said, I have an infinite number of chances. But what we need now is results, not quibbling about the process. So long as Amelia gets the credit for liberating the sanctuary, it's all good, right?
Forcing a calm, composed look onto his face, Subaru's nerves frayed as he tried not to let anything slip. His heartbeats were rapid, and the sweat on his back was far from modest. But he had to pull the wool over Roswell's eyes no matter what. He had to give a cruel explanation, for that was how Roswell wanted Subaru to be. By putting Amelia first, he was playing the role of the brave knight, faithful to a fault. For her sake, Subaru would choose methods that hurt him in the process, something he imagined would please Roswell.
I see say. Certainly, that is the sort of answer I prefer to Hayar.
Roswell's intimidating gaze had a glint that welcomed Subaru as a kindred soul. Physiological revulsion welled within him at having such a devil with incomprehensible thoughts acknowledge him as a comrade. Subaru resented the label despite being well aware of how twisted he had to be for Roswell to think of him that way.
I am pleased at the change within you, but it is difficult to answer your question. After all, it has been 4 centuries since the barrier was first deployed. There is no precedent. There is no reason to doubt how it was woven, and when I think of who wove it, it is difficult to conceive she might have made such a blunder.
So it's Echidna's barrier, huh?
My, you are already acquainted with her?
There was no way the faint whiff of envy in that seemingly teasing sentence was his imagination. Roswell clearly had an obsession with Echidna, but this time, Subaru would make use of that.
Yeah, of course I am. Just to mention, I've already picked up a bunch of things already, like about the Ryuzumeyer facility in the forest, and Garfield being an apostle of greed.
Aha! That is most splendid of you. I am grateful this speeds our conversation.
As Subaru unveiled crucial pieces of information one by one, he could feel Roswell's suspicions begin to loosen. At this rate, his feelings of haste for success caused a tardy response to the words that followed.
But if that is so, my doubts grow greater still. Why are you searching for a loophole out of the sanctuary? Having resolved to act, it is most indecisive to probe for that possibility. Indeed, your current proposal cannot but make me think this is you before your resolve is at its zenith.
Well, take it as you will.
For a single second, his reply to Roswell's counterattack stuck in his throat, but Subaru raised a finger and continued.
As you know, I've had plenty of opportunities to earn fame for Amelia. Plus, I have to say, there's not many people involved with the sanctuary, so it's a small-time event. Newsworthy moments like the white whale or the witch cult take precedence. This place holds no value.
Therefore, you are searching for a loophole? I cannot help but find your answer suspect.
Suspect!
Right when Subaru thought he'd snuck through, Roswell surprised him, shaking his head from side to side.
I have not confirmed your authority with my very own ease. This being the case, I am not obligated to go along with your foolishness. Therefore, we must draw a line we can mutually accept.
An acceptable line, huh?
I wish for this to be the liberation of the sanctuary, not through a back door, but rather liberation in a true sense. If you achieve this, my suspicions will be allayed, and you and I shall be co-conspirators striving for a common goal. Two men working to place Lady Amelia upon the royal throne. A rather profitable relationship. Aye, true.
This time, Subaru hardened his cheeks as Roswell's words cut off any hope of retreat. His words carried a power to them that was difficult to resist. Even if he was making liberal use of Subaru's return by death, Roswell was an irreplaceable force in making Amelia's wish come true. Roswell's patronage was a prerequisite for making Amelia's dream attainable. To secure the royal throne for her required Subaru and Roswell both. He jabbed at a very sore spot. But though the logical argument was a severe blow to him, Subaru had the odd feeling that something was off, as if a different scheme was being hidden behind an opinion that only seemed righteous at first glance. Subaru probably noticed it because he was attempting to deceive Roswell with precisely the same logic.
Something's bugging me a little. You're really hung up on liberating the sanctuary.
Almost as if he had a reason for wanting to do so that overshadowed the rest. Subaru's statement containing that implication made Roswell's smile deepen in an even more suspicious manner. It was that smile that made Subaru feel intensely wary toward Roswell. In other words, within his chest, there was an instant of clarity rivaling when Roswell had murdered Ram and Garfield just prior to being savagely consumed by the Great Rabbit, a moment when the blackest depths of his obsessed mind, thinking nothing of sacrificing the lives of others, poured out.
Why do you think this?
But it seemed that Roswell had no intention of opening his own heart at that point in time. Faced with the return question, Subaru clicked his tongue.
It's not very complicated. To be honest, I think your plan doesn't seem very like you. Of course I'd notice how every word from you from start to finish lists liberating the sanctuary as a condition.
I believe I already explained that. You are to exhaust all efforts for Lady Amelia. I am having you deal with the nearest problem at hand so that you might prove to me that this is your true stance. You take issue with this?
I don't think forbidding every answer besides liberation is very fair. There's plenty of other proof to be had.
We are speaking past each other. Indeed, there is something I wish to ask you instead.
This time, it was Rosewall who raised a finger. One eye closed as he spoke to the stubborn Subaru.
You appear quite tight where it comes to the trial. It almost feels to me as if you have a reason to not desire the liberation of the sanctuary.
As if I don't want this place freed. I'd just love to pry that barrier open and drag all the unresolvable problems outside. But
But
He was being carried away by the intensity of the conversation. Realizing this, Subaru instantly shut his mouth. If he spoke without thinking at this point, everything would be for naught. He strove to calm himself and choose his words with care.
I don't want to see Amelia hurt herself challenging the tomb's trial any longer.
that is why it must be you. If Lady Amelia stumbles in the trial, you need only do it in her place. Who lifts the barrier is not an issue, precisely as you yourself have said.
He'd never imagined the conversation would go in this direction. Subaru clenched his back teeth at the resistance he faced left and right. Seeing Subaru pressed into anguished silence, Rosewall narrowed his eye.
Surely you are not finding it too hard to take the trial in Lady Amelia's place. It cannot be that you are seeking a way out to spare yourself. If so, then that means your feelings for Lady Amelia are meager indeed.
Don't mess with! It's not like...
It is not like that. How can you be certain? Who would believe such a thing? If you are truly thinking of Lady Amelia, suffering any agony for her sake is only natural. If you truly love Lady Amelia, is it not most natural for you to do so? If it is for Lady Amelia's sake, you should set your own heart aside, but can you?
It seemed like an interrogation. Subaru felt like he was being swallowed up as Rosewall pressed him. Those words constituted an extremist argument. However, it was a conclusion anyone comprehending Subaru's return by death would arrive at. There was a time when Subaru had clung to that very conclusion himself. Probably, had Subaru taken the hand Echidna had offered, he, too, would have trivialized everything save for the person most precious to him. He'd endure scars and pain both for the sake of the future. But he could no longer live like that. He'd realized he didn't want to.
It would seem that your resolve has not been sufficiently honed.
Seeing something in Subaru's black eyes, Roswell abruptly let those words trickle out, making a sad-sounding sigh.
I had hoped, yes, just a little. I had placed hope in you that by some chance I might see what I yearn for with my very own eyes. But it seems things shall not go so well indeed.
Roswell did not conceal his disappointment as strength drained out of his body, whereupon he lay on the bed once more. His demeanor indicated that the conversation was over. Subaru was upset that the meeting had failed. Based on his statement just then, Roswell was conveying that he had no further reason to live this time. Having tested Subaru's mental state and found it wanting, he intended to lie down, content to merely watch Subaru's struggles and end his own life. But if the current Subaru allowed that, all his efforts would have been for nothing.
Why do you have to throw everything away all of a sudden like that? Nothing's over yet.
It is indeed over. No, perhaps I should rather say it has not even begun. You have yet to even stand at the starting line of resolve. So long as your feet do not find it, you shall never overcome these troubles.
The starting line of resolve? I don't get you. Just how far do you want to push me?
I had hoped you possessed the will to pursue your own objective, even if it tramples Lady Amelia's will underfoot.
With Subaru standing rigid, Roswell went, "Now see here," as if teaching a little child.
If you truly think it is for Lady Amelia's sake, you should ignore what Lady Amelia herself thinks. Like a little child dreaming of paradise, you do not possess the resolve to choose to walk through the cruelty of hell. To save her life, you should readily choose to ignore her wishes.
That's putting the cart before the horse, ain't it? What's with that thinking, saying as long as it's for Amelia's sake?
There is life. So long as there is life, there is a future. If there is a future, there is hope.
With Subaru's words catching in his throat, Rosewall continued his own. He spat them out meticulously, cruelly, like lead bullets. They shot directly into Subaru's heart.
If there is hope, there is possibility. If there is possibility, a person can be saved. Am I wrong?
You're wrong. Subaru wanted to speak in a thunderous voice. However, he did not have another answer. Unable to make an emotional argument, Subaru's stranded feelings made him want to wail.
No response. How many more times will you disappoint me?
When Subaru clenched his fists, his lips trembling, Rosewall turned his eyes toward him with a look of pity. Following this, he sat up once more, clutching a black book, his book of knowledge, to his chest. Then, Rosewall stroked the book's cover with a finger as he spoke toward the rigid Subaru.
Therefore, I shall hone your insufficient resolve. I shall back you into a corner once more.
Subaru was aghast. What more could he do? What would force him to even greater limits?
Already, you must have come face to face with the issues occurring in this sanctuary. You are likely better versed with them than I. But the problems before you are not within this sanctuary alone.
Why? You mean the mansion? You know about that too?
Subaru was horrified at the reference to the assault on the mansion coming from Rosewall's own lips. Was even that written within the Book of Knowledge? Or was Rosewall simply illustrating the issue with a hypothetical? The next instant blew away Subaru's such thoughts without a single trace remaining. After all,
But of course, for it is I who contracted the assassins to attack the manor.
he had just confessed that the mastermind of the incident, the one pulling the strings of the tragedy at the mansion, was none other than Rosewall himself. It was crumbling. The ground beneath his feet was crumbling. Having lost the firm footing that should have been there, Subaru felt like he was falling into darkness. Rosewall's confession was simply that shocking.
Wait a minute. You did what?
I sent assassins to the mansion. To hone your resolve, you see.
Resolve? What do you mean by resolve?
That is simple. Even with your authority, you cannot save things precious to you that are imperiled in two places at once. You must choose what is most important to you. Once you make that choice, you can never take it back. Then you will finally be complete. A being who can save but one single thing.
Subaru's words refused to come out. It was not that he was unable to face the unpleasant evidence or had faltered before the argument. It was simply that words did not suffice to convey the ferocity of his emotions. That was all. Never to that degree had he experienced something that was truly unspeakable. Frederica, Petra, even Beatrice, had they died for such a preposterous scheme? For the sake of a banal plot to shape Subaru, had they been betrayed by and lost their lives to the master they trusted completely?
Rosewall, you are truly mad.
I am indeed. I went mad long ago. Since I was bewitched by those eyes 4 centuries ago, I have been mad ever since.
400.
Not understanding the meaning of the words tossed out, Subaru could only repeat them like a village idiot. Once again, an issue arose from a time 4 centuries prior. However, it was unnatural for such words to have come from Rosewall's lips. He, a man living in the present age, had no way to know of things 400 years before. And yet, Rosewall had spoken as if he had experienced those events firsthand.
Subaru Natsuki, why are you not yet mad? Why are you not yet sufficiently insane? You should be just as crazed as I. No more. When walking upon the lonely path through territory uncharted for the sane, a human heart is nothing but a hindrance. That is what I shall strengthen in you.
As a means of shattering Subaru's heart, which was supposedly already hardened in resolve, the declaration struck all too true. He'd underestimated Roswal's knowledge of the loop. The advantage of his experiences via return by death had made him arrogant and presumptive. Roswal had devised a sieve so tight that not even return by death could break through.
So what do you intend to do?
Roswal's chilling voice showered down upon him from overhead. Even though Roswal lay in bed at a height lower than him, Subaru went down on all fours on the spot, scraping his head against the floor. He prostrated himself. There was nothing else he could do. In an unsightly manner, Subaru touched his head to the floor, pathetically making his earnest plea.
Please wait. I'm begging you. Please forgive me. I'm the one at fault. So please save everyone. I'll...
Goodness, please raise your head, Subaru. You have nothing to apologize for. You have done nothing wrong. That is why I must...
You're wrong. I can't do what you're saying. My feelings have nothing to do with it. I can't take the trial. I've lost my qualifications.
What?
As Subaru sniffed his nose, the words he haltingly conveyed threw Roswal off for the first time. Unsurprisingly, the fact was outside his expectations as well. With Roswal seemingly sinking into thought, wondering why, Subaru smacked his head against the floor once more.
Please, I'm begging you. I can't do it. Even if the mansion's attacked, it's no use. There'll be no meaning to anyone's death. So please stop. Please stop this.
No, I cannot. Indeed, hearing this, the necessity has grown stronger still.
But his earnest plea earned only that cruel announcement. Shocked, Subaru raised his head. Roswal beheld Subaru with both his eyes, a gaze of black eyes intertwined with one of blue and yellow.
To be blunt, your loss of qualifications is outside my calculations. However, that does not constitute a dead end.
Why? No matter how much you whittle me down, those qualifications aren't coming back. The sacrifices won't have any meaning.
Is that truly the case? Deep down, you yourself surely understand.
Subaru's entreaty was rebuffed by Roswal's frigid voice. Thump went the powerful leap of his heart. His surprise was not directed toward those unexpected words, for Subaru, too, understood what Roswal was saying and his true intent. His qualifications had been stripped away. They had been taken back. They had been lost. But that also meant...
If she wishes it, Echidna could reissue your qualifications or anything else. If you have put her in an ill mood, you need merely reconcile with her. Such is the nature of her greed.
In other words, Subaru needed to change his mind and take Echidna's hand. But that...
Do not grow conceited. Subaru, Natsuki, you are not the only one who understands Echidna.
Roswal pounded these words, and the envy accompanying them into the very bottom of Subaru's heart.
You will regain your qualifications. You will rectify the situation. Accordingly, my actions will not change. By not changing them, I shall back you into a corner, hone your resolve, and make you whole.
Knowing that even his earnest plea was futile, Subaru, still on his knees, sank into despair. But his dry lips moved, and slowly he spoke.
If you hate me, then make it me and no one L.
Hate you!
What other feelings could he have that would make him act like this? However, Roswal seemed genuinely put off by Subaru's words, raising his eyebrows, and then he smiled.
It is impossible for me to hate you. You are my hope. If I harbor the emotion one might call expectation anywhere in this world, it is with you and Ram and none others. I trust you from the bottom of my heart. I trust you from the bottom of my heart.
Their resolve was nothing alike. The sheer weight of Roswal's determination was on a different scale than his own. Without the slightest altruism, Roswal had crushed underfoot the tiny bit Subaru had learned from his experiences. He'd put Subaru in checkmate, leaving not so much as a gap for return by death to slip through. At that point, even if Roswaal was killed, the attack on the mansion could not be stopped. In the first place, so as far as Roswaal was concerned, his life was not something up for negotiation. Without his existence, Emilia could not win the royal selection. Life, royal selection, plea, compromise, everything was in a jumble. Without realizing it, Subaru had wobbled to his feet, bumping his back against the wall. He slid along the wall toward the exit, pouring his strength into leaving that place without a moment to spare. Conversation was meaningless. No concession was forthcoming. All he could do was exhaust the limited time he had. They were not thoughts he consciously put into words. His voice simply tumbled out of his mouth.
I won't become like you. I'm a human being, and I'm staying one.
Leaving only those words behind him, Subaru left Roswaal's room. At the very end, Roswaal said nothing. Subaru rued how pathetic he was that this brought him some small relief. Distancing himself from Roswaal's place of repose, Subaru walked unsteadily under the moonlight.
What should I do? Trickling out was a question toward a situation with no future in sight. However much he went over it, the very same words echoed back toward him as if no other reply was possible. The situation was already a stalemate, but he felt that even the smallest hope, as fine as grains of sand, had been lost to him. With this, all possibility of anyone cooperating with him had been exhausted. He could not comprehend them, witch and devil both, but oddly, he found Roswaal's confession easy to accept. The timing of the attack being when I returned to the mansion too. If the assassins were acting under Roswaal's instructions, that explained a lot. How they knew to encircle the mansion, how to invade the mansion with great ease, even the method to breach Beatrice's passage. Roswaal surely knew these like the back of his hand. That was not all. It was likely this was the second time that Roswaal had hired Elsa, making Felt steal Emilia's jewel back at the royal capital too. Had all of it been done knowing Subaru would intervene to save Emilia? Everything on that day, from earnestly running about to dying 3 times to save Emilia, to Emilia's smiling face and her telling him her name, had he been dancing atop Roswaal's palm all along. If everything has gone according to the Book of Knowledge, then was Rem being robbed of her existence and the sanctuary being sealed up? Did all this happen exactly as someone predicted? If that was so, had Subaru's free will merely been an extension of a string someone else pulled? In ensuring everything proceeded according with the prophecy, Roswaal put a stop to any developments contrary to what was recorded. If the path was crooked, he corrected it by force, so that without fail, prophecy became reality. Huh? That moment, he felt like something was off. Slowly, putting everything in order, he went over his conception of Roswaal's Book of Knowledge. He had a definite sense that something was off. Something was nagging at him, but he couldn't remember what. What is wrong? Something's not right. Something's wrong! It was a mystery lacking an answer. It resembled the prior situation, but this was different than the dead end. This haze had a path leading forward, and he felt like this path was linked to the hope he had thought lost. Roswaal's Book of Knowledge, making its contents reality, Beatrice's Book of Knowledge, the witch cult's gospels, blank pages, prophetic pages, results according to prophecy, correction, future.
Subaru.
Suddenly, a voice intruded upon that vortex of thought, making Subaru's shoulders jump. He looked back. Behind him, standing a short distance away, was a girl standing in the gloom, with moonlight showering down upon her. Emilia, her silver hair sparkling as it swayed, gazed upon Subaru with her violet eyes open wide. This unexpected encounter caused a dull ache in Subaru's chest, but Subaru swiftly schooled his expression.
Ah, Emilia Tan, what are you doing in a place like this? It's already pretty late, isn't it?
The same goes for you, doesn't it, Subaru? I couldn't sleep, so I went on a stroll.
That's so. Ah, that's right.
When Subaru nodded in acceptance, Emilia cocked her head with a mystified look. This was not the first time he had encountered Emilia at night. On one previous occasion, he had met Emilia during a moonlit stroll and had spoken with her then. This situation surely differed from that time, but to bump into her here, even so, meant Emilia's action must have been inevitable. Subaru had been invited to the tea party, reaffirmed his bonds with Patlash, heard Ryuzu's secret deep within the forest, learned Rosewall was the mastermind, and amid those various actions, Emilia had not been sitting still either. That was an obvious thing, and yet, at that moment, it struck Subaru with great clarity.
Subaru, you're not feeling well, are you?
That's so? I thought I was feeling fine.
Liar. I can tell just by looking at you. Something happened, didn't it? You can tell me if you like.
Emilia walked close, seemingly examining the color of Subaru's face as she spoke. Subaru's supposedly smooth facade had been seen through, with ease, making him truly resent his own weakness.
It's my problem. I don't want to bother you, Emilia.
It's no bother at all.
It's fine. I'm all right. You've got bigger problems than me right now. You were pretty panicked after the trial. Are you all right now?
I'm fine. I'm sorry I caused you trouble back there. I'm really sorry, Kay.
When Subaru averted his face, desperate to avoid the subject, Emilia flashed a smile with no mirth behind it. Afraid of being hurt, he touched upon Emilia's own unhealed wound, the worst thing he could have done. Failing to notice his self-deprecating thoughts, Emilia gently touched a hand to her own chest.
Seems like I butted into these issues without being prepared for them at all. Really, it made me feel like I don't have any resolve. I really want to just run away.
If you want to run, isn't that fine?
Subaru?
Latching onto Emilia's words, Subaru instantly tossed out a response. Emilia's long eyebrows jerked. She looked perplexed. Subaru glanced at her, digging his nails into his palm.
If you don't want to do it, what's wrong with running away? By forcing yourself to face something you don't want to, will you conquer it someday? Do you have to overcome it? If you see a path leading somewhere after you run that's different from before you run, is choosing that something you should be criticized for?
The words poured out in a rush. He wasn't even sure what he was trying to say. Prized unconditionally for challenging, scorned unconditionally for fleeing. Wasn't that wrong? What good came of facing something head-on if it broke you? Even Emilia's determination, Emilia's will, and Emilia's nobility were toys in someone else's game.
Echidna, Rosewall, Garfield, they're all self-centered. Stop getting jerked around by them. They're all telling me do something. Even though I'm trying to deal with it my own way, they all complain, saying not this way, not that way.
His emotions rising, it was then that he felt dizziness along with his senseless rage. An arm wrapped around the back of his head, pulling him forward before he had time to think. He felt something soft and hot, bringing Subaru's breath and thoughts both came to a halt. A warm touch pressed against him, and he realized that the gentle echo from the other side was a heartbeat. That was when he figured it out. Emilia was hugging him against her chest.
Take it slow. Take it easy. Just take it slow and listen to the sound of my heart.
Her voice was like a silver bell, tickling his eardrums. Unresisting, Subaru did as he was told. A pleasant ticklish feeling on his back made his breaths grow shallow, and a hot sensation emerged from behind the corners of his eyes. His banal depression faded, washed away by a tide of much greater emotion. For a while, he let Emilia's heartbeats soothe his stricken heart.
Have you calmed down?
Emilia slowly took away her arms, freeing Subaru's head from her chest. Facing the concern in the violet eyes before him, Subaru exhaled slightly.
Sorry to get all flustered like that. I didn't want to cause you trouble like some little kid, but
I have told you, I don't find this troubling at all. You're really stubborn, Subaru.
Giggling, Emilia touched a hand to her lips as she smiled just a tiny bit. However, the smile was too strained for him to feel like smiling himself. Rather, it made him want to apologize until he ran out of words. He didn't want to make Emilia worry. He wanted to reassure her, to tell her it was all right.
really, nothing's going right at all. Actually, I was in a meeting with Rosewall just now, trying to see if there wasn't some way to get out of here without the trial.
Eh?
Really, it'd be best if I could just take the trial in your place, but it doesn't look like that's possible. So I thought if I could at least find Tori for being so useless.
He lowered his head. Even though he wanted to reassure her, he had obtained nothing that could offer her any comfort. Even after repeating return by death over and over, he hadn't found even a single answer. His regrets on how he could have he'd done better were influenced by his memories of the second trial as well. Subaru's tragedy from birth was that he was lacking, even though that too should never have been the case.
But I'll probably manage something. I'll manage somehow. Because I don't want to make you go through hard, bad things. So I want you to trust me.
He didn't want to bear his weakness, so Subaru issued his declaration of war toward a darkness with nothing in sight beyond it. He hadn't found a way, not yet. Even so, he would not fail Amelia, or everyone
Subaru.
As Subaru conveyed his resolve, Amelia turned her moist eyes toward him. When he saw himself in those damp eyes, Subaru encouraged his own pathetic self so that, within his swaying heart, at least the most important part of him would not become warped. He would protect Amelia, overcome the sanctuary, rescue the mansion, and save every...
I am happy for your feelings, Subaru. Really, I am. But I can't accept your kindness.
And yet, it was none other than Amelia herself who repudiated that resolve head-on.
Eh?
For a second, Subaru let out a dumbfounded voice, not comprehending what had just been said to him. Subaru was astounded, eyes completely wide. Amelia gazed at Subaru as he remained like that, piecing together the thoughts inside him, word by word, trying to arrange them into a recognizable shape.
I'm really happy you think and work so hard for my sake like this, Subaru. Really, really happy. You're really reliable, really dependable. But I can't let you look for a loophole or an easy way out.
What dia meme you can't? This is just something other people forced onto you.
Even so, I'm the one who decided to do it. I have my own goal, and I have to work hard to achieve it. That's why I'm here right now. I don't want to make excuses.
With her lips pursed tight, Amelia's display of determination left Subaru at a loss for words. Her resolute face glimmered, filled with a powerful will. It was not the look of a weak girl, one who could not walk down her path unless Subaru reached his hand out to her and dragged her along it.
Besides, somehow I get it too. The trial in that tomb probably doesn't have a shortcut or a loophole anyway. It's strange, but somehow I just know. Even if I spend more time thinking about it, if I don't really get my heart in order before challenging the trial, the result will probably stay the same. I get that too.
He could offer no words to deny her. He'd looked for a loophole. But Subaru knew too, there was none to be found. He knew there was no way the witch who had set up the barrier would permit such an illogical result. In the first place, why was Subaru desperately trying to refute Amelia like that?
Hey, Subaru? Subaru? Why are you trying to help me?
With Subaru hesitating amid a vortex of doubt, Amelia seemed to circle ahead as she tossed that question at him. It was the same question she had posed once before, one that held deep meaning to both of them. Just how much time had Subaru desperately spent so that he might tell her his answer? Just how many difficulties had he overcome so that he could convey it to Amelia? Therefore, without hesitation, Subaru could give her the very same reply.
I want to help you because I love you.
I know. I can do my best because I know.
Touching a hand to her breast, Amelia's cheeks reddened just a touch as she backed up a step, closing her eyes. She continued, her words infused with myriad emotions.
So don't think like you have to do something. Just having you watch me means I can work hard, Subaru. If you want to do something for me, if you're willing to listen to my selfish words, then I want you by my side. I want you cheering me on. I want you cheering me on. I want you there, pushing me forward.
Amelia.
Amelia's words made emotions well up inside his chest. He could not stop it, nor could he put it into words. It was difficult to comprehend, and Subaru did not know just what it was, but it asserted its existence ever stronger, seemingly trying to rob him of all thought, which Subaru, clenching his teeth, continued to resist.
You've been spoiling me non-stop, so this time I want to try and do without.
The only thing that pains me is making you and everyone worry as I fail, but I'm trying to overcome the trial as fast as possible so that no one has to worry anymore.
With Subaru unable to string words together, Emilia sent his way the stout smile that came over her. It looked very beautiful.
Please, watch over me as I do my best. That's what I want you to do for me, Subaru.
Subaru forcefully kicked the ground, slicing through the wind. His heart remained restless. He still didn't have a destination. He raced down a slope with bad footing, seemingly about to take flight. Branches scraped his cheeks, leaving marks, and even as he tumbled repeatedly, he kept running so long as he had breath. He raised an incoherent voice, screaming so much that his throat seemed ready to burst, and looking up at the sky, Subaru ran. To the crisp, cool air, to the pale moon floating in the clear sky, Subaru cried out in shame. The final sight of Emilia's strong smile was burned into the back of his eyelids. That charming smile, and the resolve it conveyed, drove Subaru's misunderstanding home. Finally, he realized the true nature of the urge welling up within him, charring the inside of his chest to ashes, and because he now understood, Subaru had parted with Emilia, impulsively racing into the forest, rushing through the underbrush as if he were some kind of beast. Deep within his chest, the emotion asserted itself, growing hotter, fiercer. This was what people called shame.
How conceited, how prideful, how utterly foolish. He recalled his anger at Roswell's words and actions for looking down upon, even pitying Emilia. He'd been indignant. He'd sworn upon his unforgiving heart. Then he met Emilia immediately after bearing his thoughts to her, only to be gently rebuffed. That was when Subaru realized it for the first time, that the one who believed least in Emilia's resolve, Emilia's determination, and Emilia's strength was none other than Subaru himself. He had to protect her. He didn't want her to go through bitter thoughts or sad feelings. Under the guise of such words, Subaru had decided that Emilia was incapable of doing anything. Even while Subaru had contrived various schemes out of his desire to keep her under his protection alone, Emilia had hardened her own resolve and determination in her own, Emilia-like way, deciding to face the trial. In making that determination, Emilia had asked Subaru to support her more than anyone else. And yet, it had been none other than Subaru Natsuki who had underestimated Emilia the most.
The instant he realized that, unendurable shame slammed into Subaru, enough to make him want to die. And so, without giving Emilia's determination a clear reply, he had turned his back to escape from her and her concern, fleeing into the forest with the same feet that still carried him.
Once before, Subaru had hurt Emilia in a similar attempt to monopolize her at the royal capital. Of course, he had regretted it. Of course, he had reflected upon his sins. That was why he had returned, remaining by her side up to that point. And still, Subaru had made the same mistake once more. He'd hurt himself in Emilia's place, taking her burdens for her to pave a road for her to travel. He hadn't changed. He'd just become better at hiding his wounds. He'd simply discarded his pride in taking her burdens for himself. In terms of inflating himself and putting himself first in line, not a single thing had changed.
Out of breath, he lifted his head seemingly to gasp for air. That instant, he lost his balance, and his planted foot sailed into the air. Immediately losing his balance, Subaru slid down a slope in the forest, tumbling onto the ground, which was marred with dirt and fallen leaves. Subaru rolled and fell, spreading his limbs as he lay there on his back. With his back pressed against ground so cold, it seemed to rob him of all heat. His breathing remained ragged as he looked up above. The sky was only visible through the gaps in the forest, yet even so, he beheld the light of countless stars. The heavens were filled with gleaming stars, seemingly mocking Subaru, their stray comrade lying upon the ground. Surrounded by unfamiliar constellations, puny little Subaru was melting into the night. Fatigue suddenly pressed upon him. Once again, even more than his body, his psyche had been terribly worn down.
Returned by death, the witch's tea party, Rosewall's true intent, Emilia's resolve, and his very own shame. Too much time had passed. Limited time, the time left to him, precious. Precious time was slowly ticking away. He'd been enmeshed in a labyrinth of swirling doubts, his heart eaten away by the gloom at finding no way out. Betrayed on every level, everything had backfired and been thrown back in his face. What to do? What should I 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 do? Hoke.
Perhaps I can tell you what you should do.
The voice from above his head made Subaru sit up with a start. There was a figure standing with his back against the night atop the slope from which he had fallen. Slowly, the figure glided down, his contours gradually growing more definite.
Otto?
Yes, indeed. Good morning. Yes, it is I.
Mourn.
With that out-of-place greeting tossed toward him, the perplexed Subaru noticed it too, albeit most belatedly. The aura of dawn had already spread throughout the world, announcing the impending end of the night. Just how many hours had he wasted in a daze, gazing at an empty sky?
It is morning. So you did not even realize that fact? Serious symptoms indeed.
Can't deny it, but what are you doing here?
For the moment, I shall set aside what brought me here. More important is the situation you have been placed in, Mr. Natsuki, looking like you are dreaming as you mumble things to yourself over and over.
Ignoring Subaru's surprise at the hours having passed, Otto placed his hands on his hips and made an exasperated sigh. Subaru wobbled to his feet, using his sleeve to wipe away the dirt on his cheeks. Only a short time had passed since Otto had seen him at another strange place the night before. Not only had Otto seen him crying when Patslash was consoling him, but he also saw him in a place like this, covered in mud and shame.
Is that really something to care about at this point? In the few days since I have met you, Mr. Natsuki, I have only seen you clean at the Duchess of Karsten's manor, I believe.
I'm not really feeling up to joking around. More importantly, you
have reached a dead end? You wish to know what to do? Yes, I understand.
Prompted by Subaru's words, Otto patted his own chest. Risuro Starting Life in Another World by Teppei Nagatsuki, casted six-tale novel. Please subscribe to our channel. In a rather flippant manner, Subaru was taken aback by the sight of him being so carefree, but he wanted to cling to that humorous sight. At a time like this, he didn't mind if Otto just wanted to put him at ease. If there was even a slight chance to improve the situation, he wanted to hear it.
Please do not rush me. All right. This requires preparation.
preparation.
Yes, first, take a big breath. Nice and slow.
Presenting a hand toward him, Otto indicated to Subaru that he should breathe deeply. Subaru didn't know what meaning it held, but he did as he was told, putting his breathing in order, closing his eyes and letting oxygen fill his lung. Instantly, a hard impact pummeled the side of his face, and Subaru collapsed to the ground once more. Unable to break his fall, Subaru tumbled and fell face first into the dirt, eyes spinning. He shook his head, lifting it and wondering what the heck had happened. Seeing Otto shaking a fist, he realized he'd been punched. Then, as Subaru drew in a breath, Otto shook his hardened, reddened fist toward him once more and spoke.
Stop trying to keep up appearances in front of your friends, Subaru Natsuki.
Subaru could only gape, forgetting even the pain of being punched. As Subaru lay upon the ground, Otto glared at him with a sharp look. Normally he would seem pathetic or laugh amiably, his facial expression always seeking to avert conflict with other people, but at that moment it blazed with anger. With fury residing in his eyes, Otto Suin gazed down upon Subaru.
Rather than not knowing what to do, I imagine the inside of your mind is simply all a jumble. I expect you are in a position where you must extend a hand to others, yet your own limbs and head are insufficient for the task, so you desperately flap your arms around, accomplishing nothing but wasting time.
With Subaru pressed into silence, Otto threw words at him as the distance and his patience dwindled. Subaru remained on the ground, immobile. He grimaced, the pain and heat of his left cheek belatedly becoming clearer as he was unable to do anything but stare at Otto.
I take your silence to mean you have no objections. In the world of us merchants, at the very least, such an imposition is the vilest of all conduct. Are you listening?
When Subaru made no reply, Otto grabbed him by his collar and pulled him upward.
If you're listening, then answer me.
Gah.
A sharp, hard blow struck his forehead, sending stars scattering across Subaru's vision. It was a headbutt. Otto had reared his head back, vigorously slamming both their brows together. His eyes were spinning, but Otto did not relent. He delivered one more headbutt, sending the wobbly Subaru reeling. Forehead, heat, pain. He reeled but did not fall. His legs came to a halt.
What do you think you're?
Oh my, knocking you back brought you to your senses, did it? The thought that you might be asleep forced me to engage in a violent manner to which I am not accustomed.
What did you say, you bastard?
Teary-eyed from taking a headbutt to the bridge of his nose, Subaru recklessly charged toward Otto. But Otto evaded his outstretched arms, sweeping his feet out in return. Subaru crashed magnificently to the ground.
Just when your blood rushes to your head, you find yourself at my feet. Truly, Mr. Natsuki, there is only one word for your conduct. Pathetic.
Is that right?
Hopping up from his trip position, Subaru hurled a handful of dirt toward Otto's head. However, Otto covered his face with an arm to block. With Subaru surprised that his effort to blind him had been foiled, Otto grabbed his collar and proceeded to hurl Subaru over his back, slamming him upon the ground. The blow to his back made him lose his breath. Subaru, gasping, could not stand up.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Natsuki, this is the strength you possess. It cannot hold a candle to a knight or to Marquis Mathers, let alone one such as Garfield. Even I can do this to you.
As Subaru desperately tried to draw oxygen into his convulsing lungs, he beheld Otto, his vision upside down as the latter walked over. Otto shook his head with an air of exhaustion.
To even think you face the white whale and the witch cult. Mr. Natsuki, you are so weak, they could crush you with but a single finger. Surely you too are well aware of this. You supplement your strength with intellect then? So far as my eyes have seen, Mr. Natsuki, you have made fervent use of the puny head at your disposal. But in terms of planning and decision-making capabilities, you certainly do not rise to a level that one could take pride in. Indeed, your common sense is quite lacking.
What was Otto trying to say? Subaru breathed raggedly as irritation began to mix with his confusion. The convulsion of his lungs, the impact of being punched, the pain on cheek and brow, all these were fading. Slowly, in their place, he regained the ability to think and strove to understand.
You lack both strength and intellect. When I ponder what you might supplement these with, I can think of nothing. Mr. Natsuki, you are a puny, ordinary human being, the sort one can find on any street. And yet, you are living far beyond your means.
What have you been trying to say all this time?
I imagine that, knowing full well you are lacking with things beyond your reach, you gradually attempted to come up with various plans, driving yourself further and further into a corner. Truly, I understand how Patlash feels.
Patlash!
Subaru was more surprised than perplexed at the sudden mention of his beloved dragon. She was an excellent land dragon who was practically wasted on Subaru, and in his time of need, she had told him exactly what he needed to hear. He owed her a great deal. Otto was saying he understood her feelings. He blinked his eyes. It was incomprehensible. Noticing his continued ignorance, Otto spoke with irritation.
It is perfectly understandable to want to look good in front of a woman you're smitten with. As I believe such vanity is a necessity, I respect it, while I might find fault with aiming above one's station. Let us set that aside for the moment.
He must have meant Amelia. He must have meant Subaru's attitude toward Amelia.
Trying to look good in front of a girl who likes you. Let us forgive this as well. This is a necessary thing. After all, I believe responsibility is shared in a romantic relationship between both the cherisher and the cherished. Showing off for the sake of someone who likes you. This, too, is important. Quite understandable.
He must have meant Rem. Once upon a time, Subaru had spoken to Otto about Rem in such a manner. He was striking at Subaru's core, the treasured feelings he felt toward both girls.
But you see, that is as far as it goes.
Breaking off his words, Otto suddenly drew his head close. To Subaru, who was on guard against a renewed headbutt, Otto looked like he was clenching his teeth as he continued.
You are lacking. I am sure you understand this. You cannot do much of anything. I am sure you know this. You want to show off for the girl you like. I am sure you want to be someone the girl who likes you can be proud of. Then, for the sake of those girls, to at least supplement the portions beyond what their eyes can see, surely it is fine to have someone lend you a hand. A friend, perhaps.
Otto pulled his face away, placing one hand on his chest and the other on Subaru's as he spoke those final words. They left Subaru in a momentary daze, after which he audibly pulled in a breath.
Subaru's thoughts were, wait, that?
Subaru had once thought like that, wanting to ask for aid, to cling to someone. Of course he had. Just as Otto had said, Subaru was well aware of his own deficiencies. That was why he had been running around, even humbling himself, to get Echidna and then Rosewall to cooperate with him. The results of his efforts were that he had gained the cooperation of neither. Subaru had that unpalatable truth rubbed into his face. Hence, Otto's words were way off base. That path had been long closed to him.
I tried asking people. I looked for help, but it was no good.
In the end, the arbitrary, overbearing, if I don't protect her, feelings he'd harbored were rejected by Amelia, and he had realized he himself had been looking down on her. Having his expectations betrayed yet refusing to give up, he'd spent the rest of the night lamenting to the stars. Despite Subaru's various experiences, despite Subaru's numerous encounters, he was neither able to advance nor retreat. Subaru was even out of dry laughter as his own shame tormented him. To Subaru, there in quiet despair, Otto's lips trembled.
But, Mr. Natsuki, I do not yet recall you ever asking me. Perhaps you think I am not worth asking, that it is meaningless to ask, or otherwise dismiss the notion in a similar fashion. Perhaps, Mr. Natsuki, I appear to you as one among the great throngs of people you must protect, or something along those lines.
His voice trembled in an effort to suppress his emotions, though it only brought them into sharper relief. This was Otto's anger, Otto's sadness, and only a fraction of more roiling emotions left with no place to go. He'd hurt Otto very deeply. Comprehending this, Subaru instantly lifted his face.
You're wrong!
How am I mistaken? Otherwise, it would be very strange indeed. With what reason do you have to cower here by yourself without a single word to me?
I haven't looked at you like not telling you things wasn't because I didn't trust you. It's not like that. You're wrong.
Shaking his head, Subaru denied it. Otto pressed him further into a corner with a wordless stare. Its power made Subaru lower his eyes, running dry on words as he desperately sought a reply. It wasn't that he didn't trust Otto. If anything, it was the reverse. He trusted Otto. Just how many times over had Otto aided Subaru that loop? It wasn't about money. Otto had saved him before, out of benevolence, putting his sense of obligation and humanity first. When he had called Otto a friend, there was no falsehood behind it. But how could Subaru speak to that very Otto about his circumstances?
Instinctively, he knew the penalty for speaking of return by death remained in place. Subaru could not divulge any information carried across the boundary of death. He could engage using fragmentary information if someone had knowledge of Subaru's circumstances, like Echidna or Rosewall. But Otto was different. It wasn't just Otto, Amelia, Ram, all the other people involved with the sanctuary. Subaru could not speak to them about a single part of the unimaginable circumstances that surrounded him. And those not knowing of return by death would dismiss Subaru's words as nothing but delusions. I can't explain any of it right. The inside of my mind's all a mess. It's a big jumble, just like you said. I can't logically explain a single thing. Even if I told you it's all stuff no one would believe anyway, I don't know what to even say. Not to you, not to anyone, nothing.
Please, just say it.
To Subaru, murmuring that he could not offer up proof to make anyone believe him, Otto spoke those words. When Subaru spontaneously lifted his face, Otto crossed his arms.
I said, please, just say it. Even if it isn't logical, even if it is all a jumble. Even if it is not in chronological order, I will listen to it all without jumping to conclusions, so please.
But that's...
This is what I have been talking about. I told you to stop keeping up appearances.
Otto howled, as if this time he had truly reached the limits of his patience. Otto's outburst left Subaru astonished, only to find a finger pointed at his black eyes.
This you have no proof to make people trust you. No one will trust you without proof. You cannot explain things in a proper order. I tell you, if you have the time to think up such petty excuses, it would be far healthier for you to spill out everything inside your mind than cower like this.
even if you say that, I don't have anything to make anyone believe this messed up.
Tell me everything. Then, at the end of this messy tale, just say, believe me. We're friends, after all.
He felt like a great many thoughts and feelings inside his mind had been torn away at the root and sent flying. There was no basis to those words. They made no logical sense. They weren't convincing in the slightest. And yet, with Subaru unable to move a muscle, they had enough of something to give his back a shove.
You might not believe me, but
Even though, in that halting manner, he spoke of all the issues he had been carrying alone until there was no more to tell, it did not take him all that long.
so Roswell's ordering assassins to attack the mansion basically to push Amelia and me into a corner, leaving no place for either of us to run.
Subaru finished his explanation, heedful of the minor details for fear of violating his taboo. All the while, Otto had been creasing his brow, silent as he lent Subaru his ears.
At this moment in time, all the information I have. There's nothing more to hide.
Of course, his explanation had left out the things he couldn't speak of. The witch's tea party and return by death. As that left crucial gaps in his story, it was fair to say his explanation was chock full of holes. The logical threads connecting various pieces of information were so frayed, even he thought they sounded strange. That was how much he was waiting with bated breath for Otto's reaction to the explanation he had received. The reaction of the same Otto who had declared that all he had to do was just stick "believe me" on to the very end. Would this become hope or turn into despair? Such worries and expectations had his eardrums on edge.
Mr. Natsuki.
Finally, after a long period of silent thought, Otto uncrossed his arms and spoke.
Would it be so wrong to turn tail and run without a word to anyone else?
What the hell?
His reply, which came from a completely unexpected angle, elicited a foul and uncouth voice from Subaru. Faced with that reaction from Subaru, Otto's voice went shrill as he replied,
I mean, we are trapped in a hunting ground for the Great Rabbit. Escape depends on Lady Amelia breaking through the trial, a prospect that seems doubtful. Even evacuating the people not held captive by the barrier is being obstructed by an ignoramus. And even if somehow we arrive back at the mansion, there are assassins coming on the Lord of the Manor's orders. Just how many sins have you been committing on a daily basis for things to turn out like this?
That's what I want to know. Why does this senseless situation have to barrel down on me like this? I already knew, but God must seriously hate me. I hate me too.
If there was a god who governed fate, that deity most definitely hated Subaru, detesting him as if he were a venomous snake, but resenting that made the situation neither progress nor withdraw, nor its level of difficulty rise or fall.
Nah, before all that, Otto, I understand why you're getting all worked up, but you actually believe this preposterous story? A horde of demon beasts way beyond trouble is coming our way. Even if we try to run, we can't do anything without Amelia being up to the job. Garfield's in the way of everyone escaping, and Roswell's gone insane and betrayed us. Do you actually believe all this?
To any objective person, the bad situations lined up one after another constituted an unfolding nightmare. It seemed far more realistic to think that Subaru alone had become touched in the head than believe everything he said was fact. That's why he hadn't even thought of divulging all this. Even Otto had to.
Now see here, Mr. Natsuki.
Otto raised one finger as he responded to Subaru's question.
In the course of my travels across many lands, I have been involved with a rather considerable number of people.
Don't tell me! You can just look into someone's eyes and know whether you can trust them or something.
No, and you should not believe in such superstitious nonsense. In my time as a merchant, I have experienced far too much firsthand of just how capable people are of shrouding their gazes in order to deceive others. It is nothing to boast of, but I have some experience with being deceived myself.
It really was nothing to boast of, so the fact that he was doing exactly that made it hard to respond. This conversation was too important to make light of any part of it, so Subaru pursed his lips as Otto continued onward.
I left my parents' home at 14, firmly believing in my abilities as a merchant like any other. The results of that choice were scarcely good, or rather, the unbelievable difficulties I encountered when taking chances, thinking I had a shot at winning, made for results that were quite poor, but
Now just,
Setting aside whether the results were fair or foul, I intend to live without regretting the decisions themselves. I am the one who placed my trust and made those wagers, something I believe I should remain well aware of.
Between them, only Otto knew what choices he was using as the basis of his argument, but he surely meant he had engaged in some rather high-stakes financial battles of his own. Accompanying Subaru to the sanctuary and seeking to connect himself with Roswell was one such idea. In contrast to expectations, Otto had been acting in a sound, realistic manner. That was why Subaru had doubted Otto would lend his ears to such a baseless tale with scarce odds of victory.
That is why this is a first for me, Mr. Natsuki.
Subaru let his mouth fall open, staring as he wondered just what Otto was trying to say. To that, Otto spoke with a stupidly cheerful look on his face. It was a crisp declaration.
Ignoring the odds and joining a side with no visible chance of winning, this is a first for me.
He hurried. He was short of breath. He raised an incoherent voice. Subaru ran across the grass, irritation in tow, seemingly chasing his own emotions as they rushed ahead of him. He cut through the crisp, morning air, kicked the soil, and leaped over rocks, each and every stride grand and powerful. Finally, having run in a straight line, the building that was his destination came into view. Unintentional exultation made Subaru bare his teeth. He bared his teeth and laughed. The door practically flew when he opened it. He powerfully barreled his way into the building, and then
Roswell.
racing through the entry hall and the living room, Subaru vigorously kicked the bedroom door open so hard it seemed a wonder he did not break it. In the room were Roswell sitting on the bed and Ram in the middle of changing the bandages on Roswell's body. Both wore expressions of surprise as they watched Subaru's arrival. It was rare to see such expressions on either the perpetually made-up Roswell or the usually calm and composed Ram. An unprecedented occurrence was a good omen for the sake of changing the future. A smile gushed from him. Then, jabbing a finger straight at the surprised pair, he announced in a loud voice,
Let's make a bet, you and me, and the chips will be our wishes.
Subaru's breathing leaped and he felt like gloating as he received shocked stares from both of them. The two people inside the room, Roswell and Ram, were a pair that Subaru never expected to see with surprise on their faces. As if to project that sentiment, Subaru twisted his lips, a wicked smile coming over him.
Bat!
Recovering from his initial shock, Roswell narrowed his differently colored eyes. Roswell, having his bandages changed atop the bed, gave off a visual impression that was slightly different than normal. The reason was that the makeup on his face, the makeup he always wore, was off, leaving his bare face exposed. The flesh under the white makeup was pale, making the look in his eyes feel gentle rather than sharp, which gave Subaru the polar opposite impression from the usual. Still, he was quite handsome whether he did anything to his looks or not.
Yes, a bet. I'm challenging you to a big, serious match with what you and I want on the line.
Wait, Barusu.
Subaru raised a finger, boldly making his statement to Roswell. Roswell narrowed his brows as he pondered the proposal, but Ram interposed herself between them. Ram shielded Roswell behind her, sustaining Subaru's gaze with a reproachful look in her eyes.
What do you think you are doing, suddenly forcing your way into the room and spouting random things? Do you intend to burden Master Roswell during his bed rest? This is too rude, even for you.
You know as well as I do that he's not the kind of guy to just sit and wait to get better. Besides, the situation doesn't allow it. This problem is everybody's problem, so I'm gonna be a little pushy and reckless.
Baruso.
No matter what anybody says, I don't have any reason to stop.
When Ram exuded a dangerous aura that was mixed with obvious irritation, Subaru thrust a palm straight at her. Then, anticipating just where her actions might lead, he tilted his head and called to Roswell, sitting behind her.
What about you, Roswell? You're not gonna sulk about your schedule going a little out of whack now, are you? Do you have the guts to push yourself a little for the sake of your successor?
What a roundabout and deeply interesting turn of phrase. For the sake of my successor, you say?
Without directly touching upon the truth of return by death, Subaru made his proposal to Roswell in a deviously indirect manner. Its contents brought a suspicious look over Ram, but Subaru's intent definitely got through to Rosewall. His face still ghastly and pale, Rosewall slowly sat up higher.
Ram, wait by my... No! For a brief time, could you leave young Subaru and I alone?
Are you certain?
Do not worry. There is no concern that Subaru might cause harm to me. He is not here for payback, but for a quite different matter, yes?
Well, even if I was here for that, I wouldn't be able to do a thing. You'd just nail me back. Pathetic, but yeah, don't worry, Kay.
Waving both his empty hands, he asserted to an anxious Ram that he had no hostile intentions. Not that this was the slightest bit convincing, but Ram let a sigh trickle out, then bowed to Rosewall.
Please do not overly exert yourself. And Barusu, please do nothing rude.
Man, you're really only worried I'm gonna start something. Worry about him starting something, would ya?
Exchanging these words as Ram headed for the room's exit, Subaru slumped his shoulders as Ram snorted. Then, after the door was closed, there were but two people, Subaru and Rosewall, remaining in the room. It had been just a few scant hours since his heart was thoroughly broken, and yet Subaru found himself in the same situation once again.
I had not thought you and I would meet again face to face in this lifetime, and so quickly at that. Did something happen to alter your state of mind?
Alter my state of mind. Well, you're not wrong. My shame was exposed. I got lectured a ton. I traded blows of friendship. Nah, the punching was too one-sided to spin it like that.
Recalling how Otto had pummeled him, Subaru smiled wryly over his complete defeat, but it was a good loss. Over and over, Subaru had lost a variety of battles since arriving in this world, but never had defeat tasted so sweet.
A most cheerful face. It was only last night that you became aware of your own lack of commitment, yet you seem to have put your thoughts in order. I grandly congratulate you for your swift return.
When it comes to the meaning of grand, you've got me beat, the thickness of your face included. You know, borrowing someone's hand to get back on your feet ain't so bad, especially if it's a friend's.
Upon receiving Subaru's reply, Rosewall slowly shook his head. Despair rested within his eyes, his expression crestfallen, obvious pity projected by his demeanor. Rosewall sighed deeply.
So soft, so weak, and so very young. Ultimately, you could only solve the suffering in this world by yourself. Relying on a friend is a foolish plan, betraying only your own weakness.
Depending on people, connections, feelings, what? That's no good?
No, good at all.
That's so. Then there's no way to settle this except a bet.
With that one sentence, Rosewall's expression changed. Subaru took a step forward toward the center of the room. He walked closer to the bed, closing the distance between him and Rosewall, and thrust a finger toward him once more.
Just like I said, let's make a bet. The chips are what we want most, and there'll only be one wager.
I shall hear you out at the very last.
Rather than dismissing the proposal as out of hand, Rosewall prodded Subaru to continue speaking. Having vaulted over the initial hurdle, Subaru exhaled, turning his finger toward the heavens as he formally stated his preconditions.
What you and I want are on parallel lines. After yesterday, I'm sure of that. I want to save everything. You can't forgive me for that. Am I right?
Yes, you are indeed. Nor can you forgive me. However, you cannot distance yourself from me either.
You got me there. If we lose you, Emilia can't fight going forward. I hate to say it, but you have the power here, no matter what you're scheming, no matter how bad you and I get along.
And, knowing that much, what is it you wish to do? With your naive reliance on others, you are incapable of resolving the situation. Compromise or honing, there are no other paths before us.
If it was just me, I'm sure you'd be right.
Faced with Rosewall's words, Subaru bluntly acknowledged the weakness of his own heart. Even if he stubbornly persisted, clinging to return by death at some point, he would surely be worn down, just as Rosewall was saying. Certainly, if it was Subaru alone, still relying on no one, clutching his knees and cowering. But that was no longer the case, because it wasn't. He could lift up his head.
Rosewall, let's have one final showdown between you and me, here and now. This time around, I will save the sanctuary and the mansion. I'll blow away each and every one of your schemes.
You say you will recover somehow from this dire position, and that you will relinquish your one and only authority.
Redoing and telling you about it are two separate things. I had that ground into me. We got too conceited, you and me both. My thing isn't convenient like that.
In the second trial, Subaru saw scenes from worlds where he had chosen poorly. The more Subaru faced death, the more such tragedies unfolded. This was no way to find salvation. Besides, the search for salvation was the curse that haunted Subaru's and Roswell's hearts.
And you will confine your final chance to this life hereafter, doing as the sanctuary, no, as I fondly desire?
Yeah, that's what it amounts to. I'm sick and tired of feeling each other out like this. I'm making this the last time.
And what guarantee do I have that you will uphold your word?
Roswell sought confirmation regarding Subaru's assertion as if it was the natural thing to do.
Given your authority, you could surely make it so that the instant you said final never happened. You are free to rescind anything inconvenient to you. The validity of a promise from such a person is rather...
Rosewall.
With Roswell concerned, Subaru might go back on his word. Subaru quietly called out his name, his words stopping the moment he heard that voice. Roswell widened his eyes as he found Subaru's gaze trained upon him. Then, without changing his tone of voice, Subaru continued.
Do you think I'd do that? If you think I would, we have nothing to discuss. I'll end this conversation here.
He declared it strongly, strong enough that many opponents would break off the discussion in a fit. Such words from Subaru made Roswell close his eyes. From there, he lightly raised both his hands.
In proposing to make this time your last, what is it you seek from me?
What I want is pretty simple. If I do manage to resolve the situation my way, that'll mean a result different from what you want, right? If that happens, this unwanted development would make you lose your will to live and your drive to do certain things. I want you to set that aside.
Aside, you say. To not lose my drive, you say. Yet I cannot help but call that a most difficult thing to achieve. After all, it is a matter of the heart. Of course, it is possible to engage in pretense on the surface, but...
Not really, Roswell. It's not like you and I are always going to be wrestling with each other.
With a doubtful look on his face, Roswell was voicing dissatisfaction with the terms Subaru proposed. Seeing that Roswell clearly did not understand, Subaru rubbed his own nose with a finger as he spoke.
I know if I win, it'd lead to an unwanted development for you. But for the sake of my future, and for the sake of putting Amelia on the throne, you need to keep on staying close by. There'll probably be times when she'll have to rely on the power only I have. Setting aside the issue of priorities, I'll still be working towards your goal in the end. Oh, Roswell, my demand is simple. If I can save both the sanctuary and the mansion, throw the book aside and join us. I'll make Amelia king, and I need your power to make it happen.
What foolishness!
When Subaru extended his hand and spoke those words, Roswell's reply was brief, practically spitting out the words. It sounded less like scorn than rejection and bewilderment.
Your proposal is twisted even for you. You will engage in your own methods, yet you will forgive me, whose thoughts are incompatible with yours. My actions are exceedingly wicked. Surely those who I have sacrificed would hate me and curse me for what I have already done. Are you not at the very top of that list?
If the issue is forgiving you or not, there's no way in hell I'm forgiving you. What you've done to me, and to Amelia isn't something that can be forgiven. But that's an issue of my heart.
There was no way he could fail to hate the man. Many of the hardships Subaru had suffered were crafted and set into motion by Roswell, courtesy of the poison fangs he had meticulously prepared. That venom had wounded Subaru in mind and body both, even robbing him of his life. making him taste despair many times over. But
You won't be kicking up anything fatal like that again. Not if I resolve things, see?
Even if I cease to commit such crimes, wicked deeds are wicked deeds. Surely this is not so convenient a tale?
Me, I just love convenient tales. Emilia's gonna work hard and become king, and I'll live happily ever after right by her side, so get on the bandwagon, damn it. Let me make clear, I'm not taking no for an answer.
when Subaru closed one eye, winking as he spoke those words, Rosewall was literally agape. From there, Rosewall's silence continued for a while until finally, he covered his face with his own hands.
Succeeding in your goals while letting go of nothing, on top of that, taking in even me, a man with thoughts irreconcilable with yours, and counting me as one of the cornerstones upon which to build your future? Do you even understand, Subaru?
Do I even understand? What?
To just what extent your answer is infused with greed.
Rosewall's words made Subaru's expression shift, not into surprise, but a smile of remembrance. Just prior to leaving the Castle of Dreams, Echidna had told him the exact same thing. Witch and devil alike had identically appraised his greed, and that was just fine with him.
You're the one who said it, Rosewall.
His smile of remembrance became twisted as Subaru Natsuki responded with a wicked look.
Backing me into a corner will make me the strongest card of all. It won't be the way you wanted it, but I'll be the strongest card you can play against your enemies. Still not satisfied.
And if this strongest card is ineffective?
I won't have any more hands to play. Your victory will be complete. I'll be your minion or anything you want.
If Rosewall won, his scheme would be fulfilled. This time, the terms proposed sent Rosewall into prolonged, silent thought. Subaru quietly waited for him to voice his reply, and then,
No matter how much you struggle, you cannot hope to achieve a breakthrough. Lady Amelia cannot overcome the obstacle before her, and the barrier will not be unraveled. The sanctuary will be buried in snow, and the mansion will sink into a tragic spectacle of blood.
Yeah, it'll be worth it to see how you react when I screw all that up.
Subaru raised his middle finger in a fit of annoyance. The gesture made Rosewall sigh, whereupon he lifted a finger of his own.
Just as you will run around attempting to fulfill your victory conditions, I shall give one more push to fulfill that which is written within my book of knowledge. You have no complaints, I trust.
Well, can I take that to mean you're going along with my proposal?
As you say, it is not a bad thing to do something for my successor, nor do I lack interest in whether the results will be in accordance with what is written.
In a world already contradicting the book, Rosewall was declaring he would act according to its contents even so. Before all was said and done, Subaru had to wreck Rosewall's plans, saving everything and everyone.
Now that this is decided, time is precious. If you'll excuse me, I'll get started.
Subaru!
As Subaru turned his back on the bed, seemingly about to leave the room, Rosewall called out to him. When Subaru looked again at him, Rosewall averted his gaze ever so slightly.
The snow in the sanctuary and the attack on the mansion will occur in 3 days. I expect a valiant battle from you and an ignominious defeat.
Say what you want.
Rosewall's mundane sarcasm made Subaru click his tongue and come back with a retort. Then, Subaru pinched his own cheek a little.
Rosewall, you're throwing me off my game here. Get that clown makeup back on, would ya?
Come to mention it, this is the first time you have seen my bare face, is it not?
I suppose in this world, it is.
Once, in a world long left behind, they had entered the bath together. Subaru made a pained smile as he recalled the sight from back then that Rosewall knew nothing of.
This is a bout between you and I, 2 clowns toyed with by fate. Let's do this fair and square.
Leaving behind only those words, Subaru left the room. They had come to terms on a wager over their incompatible desires, and so it began. This was the start of Subaru Natsuki's final challenge, to liberate the sanctuary and save the mansion.
Barusu, you look like you are engaged in wicked deeds with your friend. What happened?
Having formed a promise over the wager, Subaru was just leaving the building when a voice came from behind. The bitter comment was all he needed to identify the speaker. When he turned back from the building's entrance, Ram was leaning against the wall to the side of the door, hugging her own elbows as she stared intently at him.
Stop talking about wicked deeds and stuff. That makes me sound super shady. You'll scare people.
It aptly describes two little men quietly plotting about this and that, does it not? Master Rosewall permitted it, so I did not interfere. But you should know your place.
Sorry, big sis, but I'm not facing an opponent I can beat with half-hearted moves on the game board.
As Subaru shrugged his shoulders, his reply made Ram narrow her eyes in a sour mood.
You have done it several times, but please cease addressing me as Big Sis. Ram does not recall becoming Barusu's elder sister. It is repulsive.
Saying repulsive is overkill, geez. Well, it's like a bad habit. Forgive me, Kay.
How self-serving of you. Why should Ram forgive such a...
Right as she was about to strongly admonish him, Ram's words came to a halt. This was probably because she noticed the deep, forlorn look in Subaru's eyes.
It was not on purpose that Subaru called her Big Sis. He unthinkingly sought out her kindness. In his moments of weakness, he leaned on Ram because Ram let him.
I have no interest in your strange hobbies, Barusu.
Just as planned, Ram accepted Subaru's words as a joke without pursuing the issue further.
I shall return to my initial question then. What is this conspiracy you are up to?
You really don't beat around the bush, do you? You shouldn't have been listening to me and Rosewall talking anyway.
Certainly, I was not listening, but I do have the means to peek.
Clairvoyance, huh?
When Ram pointed her own eyes, Subaru remembered that she possessed the power of clairvoyance. That ability allowed her to synchronize with another person's eyes, pilfering their vision for her own. It was through this power that Ram had learned of the pair's wager.
You're a serious housemaid to the core, but those poor manners are gonna make your master hate you.
It is the cute selfishness of a uniquely faithful spirit and a wavering maiden's heart. Overlook it, please.
Her statement was truly brazen in how it placed her on a pedestal, but Subaru hardened his cheeks. In that moment, he wanted nothing more than to continue this fruitless conversation with her. He forced down such personal greed.
Right now, is Rosewall accepting that cute maiden's heart and faithful spirit?
When Subaru posed his question, it was clear that Ram's emotionless expression had grown frostier. The edge of her pink gaze grew sharper still, but Subaru boldly took a step forward, closing the physical and psychological distance between them.
You're the one taking care of his needs. You've seen his black book, haven't you?
If I told you, what would you do with the answer?
I'm taking that as a yes, okay?
Subaru interpreted her demeanor as a clear attempt to evade a direct reply, meaning Ram knew of the Book of Knowledge. Indeed, Ram had not denied Subaru's assertion. Ram knew of the Book of Knowledge. It was unclear whether her eyes had perused its pages, but
What's written in that book decides whether Roswell takes a left turn or right, but letting him do as it says is no good. All hell will break loose in the sanctuary, and if that happens, everyone
Do you think speaking such words will move Ram's heart? If so, how shallow you are, Barusu.
when Subaru tried redoubling his words with an explanation, Ram crisply and sternly cut him off. The light in her eyes did not waver. Not even as Subaru suggested Roswell's actions would lead to a dead end.
To Ram, there is only one thing that can be placed above all else. This is absolute. It will never waver. Therefore, if it is your hope to change Ram's heart, please stop.
There's no such thing as absolute. Ram,
Watch what you speak. I shall not warn you again.
When Ram took Subaru's suppressed words as mocking her loyalty, her voice grew barbed. But Subaru's denial was not about Ram's feelings toward Roswell. It was directed at Ram herself, who had forgotten her other half, the most important thing to her in life. It was toward her using the word absolute.
Barusu, do you really expect something out of Lady Amelia?
That was why, while turned toward a door, Ram continuing the conversation over her shoulder was truly unexpected. Her emotions remained hidden as Ram tossed the question Subaru's way. He immediately realized this was revenge. Having questioned Ram about her loyalty, she was now questioning his own.
Yeah, I do. I trust her. She asked me to support her and everything.
Subaru replied to Ram's question honestly and without reserve. Even while respecting Amelia's choice to challenge the trial herself, he'd schemed to push the matter away several times over. However, this was not because he viewed it as impossible for her and had given up. He'd never questioned whether she could overcome it, not even once. Subaru had arbitrarily judged that time did not permit it, and nothing more.
Lady Amelia being unable to overcome the trial is through no fault of her own. There is a reason she stumbles without knowing why herself. Being unaware of this, she merely repeats herself, to no avail.
Without touching upon Subaru's proverbial question mark, Ram said only this before opening the door. Before her petite physique vanished into the building's interior, Subaru instantly opened his mouth.
Ram, the situation's already contradicting what the book says. Rosewall is free.
He didn't think of it as returning the favor for her words of advice, but he put the words on his lips all the same. The events had already strayed from what was written in the Book of Knowledge, and the world proceeded apace toward a new future. It was yet to be determined whether this was linked to tragedy, with all laid to ruin, or to breaking through fate itself. When Ram receded from sight, closing the door behind her, Subaru let out a sigh. In the end, Ram's position had not changed, nor had she spoken of things beyond her personal opinion.
But she gave a lot more advice than I expected. Maybe she likes me too.
Are you still speaking such things? I believe the person concerned would be quite angry if she overheard you.
This Feel the Love campaign is still ongoing. Go ahead and give me more good news to celebrate if you'd like.
As Subaru shot the breeze, Otto, with leaves stuck to his hat, emerged from the shadow of a nearby tree, which he had been hiding behind. The sight made it hard for Subaru to deny Ram's assertion he was engaging in wicked deeds.
Hiding 'cause you're scared of Ram? She won't bite. She's not as scary as she looks.
I think that would also make her angry if she overheard it. At the moment, Ram is cooperating with the Marquis, so that makes us enemies of a sort. Yes, it's only natural to be wary of her.
Ram? An enemy?
Subaru was fairly surprised when Otto made that assertion with eyes of reproach. In return, Otto gave him a questioning look, leaving Subaru agape at his own self. Otto's thinking was certainly correct. Given her position, Ram was on the opposing side. He should have thought of it in those terms from the beginning. Though he knew she couldn't be counted on as an ally, he did still arbitrarily assume she was a neutral party in this contest of wills.
Ha, Mr. Natsuki, I understand just how much you have trusted Miss Ram in the past. There are also your feelings for Miss Ram remaining back at the mansion, to be sure.
Just lay off for a second, all right. I'm still reeling from how naive I've been.
That is fine and well. Self-awareness is important. But more importantly, what of the Marquis?
Having finished with his opening jabs, Otto cut straight to the point. Subaru twisted his cheeks as he jutted a thumb straight up.
Negotiations were a success. The bet's been made.
I am relieved to hear it. Well, I certainly thought he would go along, but tripping up here would have made all the plans for what follows come to naught.
You're quite an optimist. It was plenty possible Roswell wouldn't go for it, right?
Very little, really. The Marquis appears to lack experience with losing.
As Otto sank his shoulders, Subaru went, aha, accepting his view. Certainly, just as Otto supposed, Roswell seemed strong in a fight. He was cunning, and he had guts, too. In fact, 80% or so of the crises Subaru had been placed in were schemes of Roswell's devising.
A human being who schemes that much will not back down, for if he did, it would be none other than himself who he betrays. There is also the fact that it would seem like weakness.
Oh, somehow, you feel really dependable. You haven't died by any chance, have you?
I am quite alive. Besides, please stop flattering me. When I let compliments go to my head, I am bound to trip up somewhere soon. I speak from vast experience.
Not that I'm one to talk, but that's some sad experience.
Both of them lost often enough that they could not relax, even if the circumstances seemed to be running smoothly. Either way, Otto had made his own proposals, which had set the stage for the showdown with Rosewall. Of course, in the end, this succeeded only in creating the preliminary conditions, but
Headed college having to play this game all by my lonesome.
For the moment, however, this is still only the first game board, and we must discuss the next.
no temporary sense of accomplishment arose in Otto as he immediately switched over to the next issue at hand. At this point, Subaru crossed his arms and donned a grim face. The creases of his brow displayed his inner discord. The cause was...
Garfield, huh?
Otto led the conversation toward a single answer, namely the conclusion that Garfield's cooperation was necessary and irreplaceable for breaking free of the sanctuary. To date, Subaru and Garfield had borne enmity toward each other several times. At times, this descended into killing. Subaru could not forget how his fangs and claws ripped the people dear to him to shreds. Naturally, he had not forgotten his anger either.
Certainly, he is a moody opponent, but in the present situation, he is the easiest to bring onto our side. His position is different from that of the Marquis, whose views are absolutely irreconcilable with yours. Surely you understand this, Mr. Natsuki?
The explanation came from none other than Otto, who had been a murder victim himself once. Subaru nodded solemnly. If Subaru ignored his own reluctance, it wasn't impossible to fight alongside Garfield. Indeed, Subaru had cooperated with him twice already. The first was against the witch, and the second was to confront Rosewell. Both had resulted in tragedy, but
So the only problem is how I feel, isn't it?
Well then, please forget about that here and now and let us speak of it no more.
Forget and speak of it no more, man. That's easy for you to say.
Subaru was less angry than taken aback at how bluntly Otto had put it. However, he said, "Now see here," as he thrust a reproachful finger forward.
Mr. Natsuki, we have no time for this. There is no time to worry about such sentiment. As we speak, time is steadily passing us by. It is the same as merchandise growing stale. Before irrevocable damage is incurred, we must set aside our personal feelings. They are unproductive. Unproductive.
I get it. Really, you're a lifesaver.
To Otto, who was urging him to use all of his head rather than part of it, Subaru let the last part of his sentence trickle out in a small voice. He needed to cut off his emotions and deal with the top priorities. In terms of cutting things away, Otto's demand differed little from Rosewall's. And yet, it felt like a world of difference to him.
Guess whether it's looking forward, backward, or sideways, the speaker makes a big difference.
We have no time for idle banter. That is not your job, Mr. Natsuki.
Yeah, I know.
Against Garfield, the key would be the witch's advice that he was afraid of the outside world. He hated relying on Echidna, but in this current situation, he couldn't let himself get hung up on that. If he wasn't going to depend on return by death, he needed to use anything he could, be it a cat's paw or the words of a witch with a foul personality.
I will do as we planned. As for Amelia,
That's the one thing I won't let you stick your hand into. I suppose I can't exactly stick mine in either.
Subaru was unsure whether he should have nodded his head or shaken it from side to side in response to Otto's worry. Having lost his qualifications, Subaru could not aid with the trial. The tomb's barrier could only be undone by Amelia challenging the trial. At the very least, if he only could find a clue. Even though he knew that clue was to be found in Amelia's past, a past she feared, filled with excessive grief.
I still haven't asked Amelia about it. In the end, I guess I chickened out.
Unable to watch Amelia shed tears after she was crushed by the trial, he had not confirmed anything beyond that. He danced around the issue. It was the price of having a weak, loving, tender heart.
Because I didn't have the courage to stare straight at her scars, I gave her a pat on the head to console her and pretended to not notice. How many times do I have to repeat that before I learn?
My goodness, I have to question your love if you can't even handle this much. Please stop playing innocent all the time. It is quite ridiculous.
Why, you...
Subaru twisted his lips over Otto's rush of words, making light of the somewhat embarrassing exchange. Sighing deeply at his reaction, Otto lightly stretched on the spot.
Well then, have you resolved to treat Lady Amelia's wounds?
Resolved to ask if it's okay for me to, at least. Unlike with Garfield, I'm not afraid it's gonna get me killed.
I am somewhat torn whether it is all right to laugh about that.
If he carelessly picked at Garfield's wounds and earned his ire, that would simply put him in mortal danger. Compared with that, he had no concerns about asking Amelia, save a fear of being intrusive. What spurred him to do so was Ram's words of advice, that Amelia stumbled without even realizing why.
So for that too, it all comes down to my Amelia, huh?
She is not yours yet, Mr. Natsuki. I suppose that is me telling you in Lady Amelia's stead?
Oh, shut up.
Glossing over his worries with a frivolous tongue, Subaru turned a clenched fist in Otto's way. Seeing this, Otto scratched his head, then answered in kind, meeting Subaru's fist with his.
Anyway, we gotta do this. Let's have one hell of a party when everything's settled. Don't screw up, man.
Indeed. For the sake of not just yours, but my own sparkling future, I'd certainly like it if everything goes nicely.
Don't talk about stuff like your own sparkling future. You're worrying me.
Just what do you mean by that?
After wrapping up their exchange, the two bumped their fists together and turned away from each other. Otto had his role to play and Subaru had his. With this in mind, he took the first step toward fulfilling his role and headed for the forest, his feet hastening to the place hidden within. When he placed the crystal into the white wall, the dazzling light gushing forth filled his vision.
Even when you know it's coming, it's still a surprise.
Covering his face with an arm, Subaru commented idly as he waited for the blue light to abate. Then he timidly lowered his arm, looked at the brightly lit wall, and was relieved to find what he had sought.
The fact the wall opened up means that even if I'm stripped of the challenger status, I still haven't been expelled from the apostles. Is this echidna scheming or a simple oversight? I'll bet Otto's soul that it's just an oversight.
Speaking such words, Subaru used the crystal as a key to a hidden room and stepped into the Ryuzumeyer replication facility, which was hidden deep in the forest of the sanctuary. Inside, Subaru's eyes found a giant crystal and the girl sealed within it. Arriving to find the site utterly unchanged from before, this served as proof that Subaru's status remained similarly unchanged. This was one method for Subaru to confirm his status as an apostle of greed. He had paid this place a visit with that exact intent. Besides, coming here meant that
I can meet the people involved too, but the smell here is just awful. Wouldn't it be better to clean this out?
I am of the same opinion, but it is a measure to prevent insects and small animals from approaching. If you wish to complain, I would prefer you lodged it with its wily designer.
Nah, I'll pass. I don't want to meet her ever again if I can help it.
With this, Subaru trained a pained smile toward the figure who had appeared at the entrance to the hidden room. It was a girl with long pink hair, Ryuzu, an individual with an elderly air about her. Walking over, the girl stood beside Subaru, gazing up due to their height difference as she peered into his black eyes. The air felt parched as she squinted at him with her round eyes.
Now then, from the fact that you are here and the statement just now, it would appear you are already rather well versed concerning us.
It's pretty much what you suspect. I already have a general idea about that and the purpose of this place.
I see. I had wondered if that might be the case when you went into the tomb to bring out Lady Amelia last night. There is now no question that you are a qualified apostle.
Ryuzu was surprised by Subaru's reply but immediately nodded in acceptance. Somehow, she had a tired expression on her face. The look in her eyes was rich in deep sentiment.
So it is you, young Sue, who young Roz was waiting for.
Ah, sorry. That plotline's been scrapped. The editor said the readers don't want to see that.
Huh?
Also, I want to confirm something about what you said just now. Something really important.
The way he ignored her solemn discovery with a light-hearted demeanor took Ryuzu aback, but while she was still reeling, Subaru placed a hand on her shoulder, earnestly meeting her eye-to-eye.
Rizuzu, how much do you know about Roswell's thinking?
Young Su?
Tell me, Rizuzu. I don't want to think of you as an enemy.
Staying in place, Subaru bowed his head as he pleaded to Ryuzu. His intensity brought a conflicted look over Ryuzu. Finally, the corners of her eyebrows fell.
If you wish to ask, you need only exercise your rights as an apostle and ask away. I am sure that at your age, you must love being able to do with a girl as you please, young Su.
I might be a young man, but your outward appearance is outside my suitable age range, Ryuzu. Besides, I don't want to rely on command rights to talk to a replica. I came to talk to you, Ryuzu.
Subaru's words made Ryuzu's breath catch. Her somewhat long ears trembled in surprise. If all he cared about were results, Subaru should have brandished his rights as an apostle right then and there. But if he treated Ryuzu as a replica, a doll, Subaru felt he would end up damaging something important to him.
As long as there was life, a future, hope, possibilities, yes, that was what Roswell had said. Subaru didn't think he was mistaken about that, but that was all. Roswell was not correct either. The proper path surely rested elsewhere. That was why Subaru wanted to speak to Ryuzu the proper way.
All I know is that young Roz inherited a book from her lady the witch.
Perhaps his sentiments had gotten through, for the surprise in Ryuzu's eyes faded as she haltingly began to speak.
Surely, one part of what is written within the book is to administer the sanctuary. This, and all else, is for the sake of greeting the awaited one. Yes, it was a previous generation of Roswells from which I heard this.
That's it, huh?
I swear that is all. Or do you wish to question whether it is true or false as an apostle?
I'm gonna pass. I trust you, Ryuzu.
Perhaps it was more precise to say he wanted to believe her. Drawing in her chin, seemingly satisfied by Subaru's reply, Ryuzu looked at the hand resting on her shoulder.
I must say, though, this is quite passionate of you. It makes even my heart beat a little faster.
That's painting a problematic picture, but still, this is a big help. I mean, Ryuzu, if even you turned out to be a devil, I would have been this close to ordering you as an apostle to go sink into a smelter or something.
You are a boy who likes saying very scary things with that childish face of yours, aren't you?
When Subaru removed his hand from her shoulder, Ryuzu tut-tutted as she slapped her hip. It felt like an act of consideration to brush the stifling atmosphere aside. Going along with it, Subaru let his cheeks slacken. And then, having finished checking up on the initial scare, Ryuzu inclined her head.
Now, from the look of things, this is no trifling matter. Young Su, are you in some kind of argument with young Roz?
It sounds more impressive to call it a match than an argument. The results will be better for everyone if I win, so I wanted you to cooperate with me too, Ryuzu.
Young men resort to posturing so quickly. So what kind of dispute is it?
The easiest way to put it is, what's the best way to liberate the sanctuary, I guess?
So far as their relationship with Ryuzu and the others was concerned, the conflict between Subaru and Roswell began and ended with that. Both wanted the barrier lifted. The only difference was in how to bring that about. Subaru pinned his hopes on Amelia. Wall pinned his hopes on Subaru.
And I know that while you support liberating the sanctuary on the surface, you're actually part of the opposition, and that Garfield holds the same opinion.
Finally, Subaru cut to the heart of the matter, which he hadn't had a chance to directly confirm to date. Previously, he had heard from Ram that not all residents of the sanctuary supported its liberation. Some residents were part of a faction that wanted to remain. Subaru was already confident that Ryuzu and Garfield formed the vanguard of this Remain faction, and were the ones wielding the most influence within it. Once before, during that loop, Subaru proposed that he liberate the sanctuary on his own, but the proposal courted Ryuzu's ire and resulted in Garfield crushing his plans by force. It could mean only one thing. Neither of the two desired the liberation of the sanctuary.
I understand how you feel. I don't intend to stand here and say heading outside is the absolute right thing to do. I understand the feeling of not wanting to change your environment, but
opening the path to the outside created change, like it or not. It was instinctual to disdain this and seek to protect the present status quo, which was familiar. He didn't want to force that sentiment down. However,
But it'll inevitably bring misfortune, and that's something I can't let happen. This once, it's necessary by hook or by crook.
in the near future, disaster would strike the sanctuary. When that time came, the only thing remaining would be death. To avert this catastrophe, the barrier had to be lifted. He needed to liberate this place. But the decisions did not end there.
If it comes down to it, you can make a choice then and there. Whether one stays or goes can be left up to each person. But I won't let you keep the door locked. On that, I won't budge. I don't want to resort to it, but I will if I have no choice. So please don't make me. Let's settle this by talking to each other.
He didn't want to depend on his right of compulsion as an apostle or anything like that. That was why he desperately wanted to settle things through dialogue.
That's why, Ryuzu?
When he raised his resolve-imbued face, Subaru furrowed his brows, perplexed. In front of Subaru, contrary to his expectations, Ryuzu listened to his words with what felt like a very conflicted look. Then, her face still conflicted, Ryuzu audibly cleared her throat.
Ahem. I am sorry to interrupt when you are being so heartfelt. But where did you hear that I oppose liberating the sanctuary?
Somewhere that's not quite here. You don't need to hide it.
Don't go spouting something vague like young Garand. Give me a serious reply. Where did you hear such idle gossip?
Idle gossip, I heard it myself with my very own ears.
Faced with Ryuzu's souring demeanor, Subaru's voice gradually lost its strength. After that, Subaru gulped, his eyes faintly avoiding Ryuzu's gaze.
Ryuzu, don't tell me you're actually not opposed to liberating the sanctuary?
As far as whether to lift the barrier, I have no intention of obstructing its removal. Just as you said, young Su, whether one stays or goes should be an individual choice. That is what I believe.
The hell? That's crazy.
This unanticipated comeback sent Subaru reeling. He had come here with the intention of persuading Ryuzu, who apparently held Garfiel's reins, and that was supposed to put him one step closer to dealing with Garfiel, the linchpin to all his plans. Her reply had shaken those plans to the core. No, disrupting those plans was far from the only issue.
Then, that time, why did you? I was sure I was being imprisoned so that I couldn't liberate the sanctuary. If I'm wrong, what was that all about?
Clutching his head in confusion, Subaru desperately tried to make sense of all the inconsistencies. Ryuzu, watching Subaru with narrowed eyes, let out a delicate sigh.
This is all quite a jumble. But I cannot dismiss your doubts as pure delusion.
Ryuzu, do you have any idea what?
Before that, young Su, I wish to ask you something.
Interrupting the hasty Subaru's flustered thoughts, Ryuzu's serene eyes seemed sincere as she spoke. What is she going to ask me, thought Subaru, blinking his eyes in surprise as Ryuzu hesitated ever so slightly.
Young Su, what do you think of young Gar?
The question came out of the blue, but Subaru immediately understood the reason for her unease.
Ah, I see. That figures, huh?
Subaru's acceptance of what was natural became a sigh that trickled out from his lips. It wasn't complicated. Ryuzu was worried about Garfield. From their conversation to this point, anyone could tell that there was antagonism between Subaru and Garfield. That would no doubt have an impact on relationships after the sanctuary was liberated. To Ryuzu, it was unmistakably a major issue that went well beyond her personal affairs. That was why.
To be honest, I don't have a good impression of him. At this point, he's my closest potential enemy.
Thinking that hiding it was futile, Subaru offered Ryuzu a crisp answer. His reply made Ryuzu lower her eyes.
I see,
Was her faint response. However, seeing with that sunken expression, Subaru continued, but.
By closest potential enemy, I mean that he's the one I'll clash with first. Once that's taken care of, I won't know if we can get along well or not until everything's said and done.
Ah,
To figure that out, among other things, I'd want to learn more about him. See?
Scratching his cheek, Subaru resigned himself to coming off as someone spinning a convenient tale. But these were not words he had chosen because they sounded good. They expressed Subaru's true views. Just like Roswell, he didn't harbor a good impression of Garfield, but he'd confirmed for himself Garfield did not have a wicked heart on Roswell's level, leaving Subaru with no reason to make an enemy of him.
You are good at pulling the wool over your elders. Young Su,
Ryuzu, you're seriously trying my reputation in the neighborhood, aren't you?
Ryuzu shook her head with a muted smile. Then, taking a step forward, she placed a hand on the blue crystal before her, the object that touched her very own roots.
it seems you heard about us from our mistress, the witch, that we are replicas of Ryuzu Meyer, or perhaps the objective for which the replicas were created.
I know that it was an experiment in immortality, and you and the others are the products of that experiment.
Strictly speaking, it was not Echidna, but Ryuzu herself from whom he heard the explanation on a previous lap. That briefing included how the sanctuary containing Echidna's tomb was a laboratory for her search for immortality, that Ryuzu was an example of its success, and that the replicas' roles were to serve as vessels in which to pour a soul. Also, that even among the replicas in that place, Ryuzu held a special individual role.
I am one of the original 4. Even now I watch over the magic crystal as more replicas continue to be born. I bear the duties of administrator and overseer. The 4 of us were to bear these duties in sequence.
I heard the part about being one of the first 4. So besides you, Ryuzu, there's 3 other people?
4 people, is it? It is likely inappropriate to count us, born by unnatural means, as people.
I don't want to treat you, who's currently living a full life as a lowly hag, like some doll. Don't try to convince me otherwise. Okay, the other 3 people. Wait.
Breaking off his words there, Subaru licked his dry lips once. Instantly, a sense of déjà vu arose. Something stood out in his memories. Subaru carefully selected his words for the question that needed to be asked.
On a previous time going through the loop, Ryuzu herself had made a request to him. Her role had been assigned. They sought individuality in all other things, in tastes, in hobbies, and in names. Therefore, what he needed to ask at that point was, "My name is Subaru Natsuki Ryuzu. What's your name?"
Ryuzu narrowed her eyes at the question, looking like she was gazing at something that dazzled bright.
My name is Ryuzu Arma. I am one of the first 4 replicas.
Arma.
As Ryuzu gave her personal name, Subaru repeated it, closing his eyes. He nodded, but once.
The Ryuzu I first met named herself Ryuzu Bilma. I'm pretty sure. Meaning you didn't have any intention of hiding it at the start, did you, Ryuzu?
When he asked for her name, she answered. For hiding it meant repudiating the very individuality she had gained. Finally, Subaru understood, too. The 4 Rises, the overseers of the sanctuary, shared their role with one another. The 4 had been pretending to be a single person.
But why go through all that trouble? Couldn't you have just acted like quadruplets?
Our replica bodies are not of flesh and blood, but false Odo shrouded in mana. Mana depletes according to how active the body is. It is insufficient for even a full day's worth of activity.
I see. It's just like with spirits. So to make sure your job doesn't go unfilled during the time you can't materialize, a substitute Ryuzu does the job for you.
Subaru snapped his fingers. It all made sense. But he did think it was an awkward way to live. Ryuzu's role of overseer was being performed by multiple people. One could also say that 4 people's lives were chained to that single role. That
That is a matter for the ones in question to take on. To interfere in that would be an act of arrogance, young Su.
I get that. I won't say a word if you don't have a problem with it, Ryuzu. But if you don't accept it, please tell me. Then I'll have Rosewall put you 4 girls, or maybe it should be dozens of sisters, on a family register even if I have to smack him.
If the replicas of Ryuzu Meyer, numbering over 20, who existed in the sanctuary, intended to search for a life beyond that of a replica, Subaru wanted to help.
Young Su, you are a good child.
The term family register probably didn't get across, but Subaru's intent must have been conveyed nonetheless. Ryuzu smiled, her eyes filled with the same affection as if gazing at a baby. This was doubtlessly the glimmer of individuality that Ryuzu Arma had gained over the lengthy passage of time.
MA. Anyway, I get it. So let's get back to the original discussion.
You may blush all you like. That said, it is I who began this discussion. The 4 originals fulfilling the role of overseer, myself included, shared the same intent. Had we not, we would have been unable to act as if we were a single person. However, this only remained true until 10 years ago.
10 years ago?
Ryuzu Shima, she who has strayed from the original 4, and the one and only exception to this rule.
She named the person that ought to have shouldered the same role as her, Ryuzu Shima, the one from the original 4 who had strayed from her duty as overseer. Subaru remembered hearing her name. The first one he had met was Bilma. The one before his eyes was Arma. And
I shall uphold my promise. I shall tell no one. This, I swear upon the name of Ryuzu Shima.
on that problematic night, those final words had been the trigger for his imprisonment. The Ryuzu, who had been together with Garfield in that place, had named herself Shima, and Subaru had most likely been incarcerated by Garfield on this Shima's orders.
Ryuzu Shima?
Yes. The issue arose roughly 10 years ago. She was relieved of her duty as an overseer and has lived in the forest like the other replicas ever since. Accordingly, it is now 3 people who fulfill the role of overseer.
What was the issue that got this Shima stripped of her duty?
When Subaru asked about the details from 10 years prior, Ryuzu hesitated. However, it only lasted a single second. Ryuzu sighed, perhaps thinking that silence came off as insincerity.
She defied our vow to our creator, the witch. Accordingly, she was stripped of her duty.
By vow, you mean?
Ryuzu Shima defied the vow by entering the tomb. She went against the witch's command, entering the tomb to bring back young Garfield, who had not returned from the trial.
Upon receiving that explanation, Subaru felt a jolt run through him as disparate pieces of information inside him were linked together. Garfield had challenged the trial, only to fail and become an apostle of greed. Ryuzu Shima, who had brought him back, had been stripped of her duty as overseer. And multiple replicas were playing the role of Ryuzu the overseer. So the reason Garfield opposed liberating the sanctuary, even resorting to force to do so, was that
Shima put the idea in his head. She was stripped of her duty for rescuing Garfield from the tomb, and that became her reason for being against liberating the sanctuary.
That I know not. I have never met Shima since she was stripped of her duty, but it would not be strange for young Gar to have met with Shima, for they share memories in a fashion we do not.
Memories that you other Ryuzus don't have.
What young Gar saw in the trial at the tomb was the past.
when Ryuzu lowered her eyes and replied, Subaru went, letting his voice trickle out like a village idiot, and he felt the hazy connection between Garfield and Ryuzu grow stronger and more distinct. Garfield knew it was Shima who had saved him. And as for Garfield's past, what Garfield felt toward that past, and what feelings he harbored about it up to that very moment, only Shima knew.
Young Su, do you know of young Gar's family?
Only a bit. I know that Frederica is Garfield's sister through a different father, and that's why their family names are different. Also, how only Frederica, who's thin-blooded, left the sanctuary 10 years ago.
After getting that far, the 10 years ago time frame made Subaru open his eyes wide. What if the events of 10 years prior made up the barb deeply embedded in Garfield's heart?
Don't tell me. The past that Garfield saw was the site of Frederica leaving?
No, it is not so. Frederica left the sanctuary after young Gar took the trial. Therefore, what he saw was surely
After correcting Subaru's mistaken assumption, Ryuzu trailed off at the end. It was the hesitation of a human being who had a strong suspicion. Then, after a pause of several seconds, Ryuzu voiced her thoughts aloud.
What that child saw was most likely when he parted with his mother.
With a shudder, Subaru felt like something had torn into his own chest. Leaving your mother, and in the trial, at that, hit Subaru close to home.
If that child of 10 years ago had seen something powerful enough to leave scars upon his heart, it must be parting with his mother. I cannot think of anything it could be, save for when young Gar and Fu's mother left them here.
Parting with his mother and being left behind.
When Subaru put the possible past on his lips, to be blunt, he felt a little disappointed. It would be wrong to quite call it hope, but he'd imagined a much grander past than that. But if Ryuzu's guess was correct, and Garfield separating with his mother was the barb driven into his heart,
Him obstructing the sanctuary's liberation isn't caused by negative feelings for the outside world so much as for the mother who chose it over him.
Perhaps he hates it. There is also Fu leaving after the fact. The outside world stole his mother and his elder sister from him, even if he wanted to go after them. There is the unstudy this.
ReZero, Starting Life in Another World by Tapai Nagatsuki, casted six-tale novel. Please subscribe to our channel. Barrier blocking the path. He cannot bring us outside with him. Surely, the child anguished over who is more important to him, his family or us. I'm sure he's still doing it. Hey, does he actually resent or hate his mother? Garfield's anguish was one that was impossible for Subaru to understand. Through thick and thin, Subaru's parents had never abandoned him or given up on him. It was because he had been so blessed that the notion gave Subaru pause.
That child came to call himself Garfield Tinsel. That is the family name of the child's mother. I believe Garfield calls himself this so that I do not forget about her.
So that you don't forget.
Nodding at Subaru's words, Ryuzu looked up at the crystal, narrowing her eyes. She had her own issues that were difficult to forget. She gazed at their core, seemingly thinking of Garfield as she did so.
He did this so that the feelings he harbors for his past are not forgotten. Whether this is out of anger or sadness is something known only to him and Shima.
He knocked on the room's door, waiting for several seconds. But there was no response. When he turned the knob and easily let himself in, Subaru knit his brows at the carelessness of it.
This is a security issue. Have to tell her to properly lock up.
He grumbled to himself as he peered into the room through the gap made by the open door. His intent was not to peek out of inquisitiveness, but to confirm whether there was a person inside sleeping defenseless. Fortunately, there was no one present on the bed at the back of the room. He was relieved by this, but also a bit conflicted.
Dang, I heard she was in her room. Where is Shish?
Subaru?
Emilia Tan, you're here?
Subaru was struck by surprise to hear only a voice, with the girl herself nowhere in sight, whereupon a white hand slowly emerged from the other side of the bed. It belonged to an individual sitting on the floor there.
What's wrong, Emilia Tan, sitting on the floor like that? You'll get your butt dirty.
Her. I was tossing and turning in my cell. Sorry, that's a lie. Really, I was having a bit of trouble sleeping.
That's an odd thing to lie about. I'll pretend I didn't hear it, but I see.
Hugging her knees as she sat on the floor, Emilia greeted Subaru with a guilty look on her face. The whiff of gloom upon her comely, lovely features had likely been caused by a lack of sleep and overwork, just as she had stated. There was no mistaking the mental strain. Subaru knew, having had plenty of experience sitting alone on a sleepless night.
Did you sleep a little after meeting me last night?
He did not take her frail nod to mean yes, but merely as conveying that she was listening to him. This was hardly the only loop that involved greeting the morning without having slept a wink. All-nighters caused a gradual collapse as both mind and body were worn away.
Sorry. Making you see me in a sorry state like this.
Amelia?
And it was only yesterday I asked you to watch me do my best, Subaru. I can't have you seeing me weak like this. Can I? It's all right. I'm going to sleep properly until nightfall. So,
Emilia pinched her own cheek as if to show an obviously worried Subaru that she was trying to bolster her spirits. This somehow adorable expression of resolve made Subaru spontaneously loosen his lips.
Amelia Tan, it's almost noon. Announcing you're going to sleep from now until sunset, that's sloth.
somehow, the way you worded that makes me feel really weird. Subaru, you meanie?
After Subaru's flippant words made Emilia smile, the two proceeded to spend a few brief, relaxed moments together. He admired Emilia's determination and resolve. Emilia's words from the night before had not only smashed Subaru's conceit, but also showed she, too, had courage. It was an important realization. Emilia had said she wanted him to support her. Subaru had come to do just that.
Amelia, are you willing to talk to me about what you saw in the trial?
When Subaru shattered the gentle, lingering atmosphere, cutting straight to the point, Emilia's breath caught. Grief spread across her violet eyes. Before she could wipe it away, Subaru pressed the issue further.
I heard from Ryuzu and the others, so I know that you see your past in the trial. You see your hardest moments from the past, and I know that's the reason you're suffering.
The only reason Subaru was passing it off as hearsay was to conceal that he had his own experience challenging the trial. Having already lost his qualifications, talking about his encounters with Ekadina would only court confusion. Besides, in that moment he wanted to devote all his feelings for Emilia's benefit.
I was happy when you told me you want me to support you. That's why I want to help you properly, and not just try to keep you all to myself. So I want to know what's worrying you.
Subaru.
I won't claim anything like talking will make it easier, but if you talk about it, we can at least worry about it together. I don't know how dependable I'll be, but won't you let me fight the same enemy you are?
He had lost the qualifications to take Emilia's place to fight the suffering pouring down onto her in her stead. Therefore, Subaru hoped to come close and give Emilia a shoulder to lean on when she was tired. Perplexed, Emilia fell silent. Subaru quietly awaited her reply. The sway of Emilia's eyes bespoke of her profound gloom. A vortex of various agonies raged within Emilia: bewilderment, hesitation, guilt, self-loathing. But finally, Emilia closed her eyes tight.
Subaru, you'll believe me?
"Won't you?" were the words surely to follow, but Emilia did not voice them. Her nobility would not permit the unfairness of doubting someone who was asserting his sincerity. The very unfairness that Subaru had once beaten into Emilia, unable to resist, trying to monopolize her for himself.
I think that the past I see is probably from before I slept.
Opening her closed eyes, Emilia haltingly began to tell her tale. The tale of the wounds of her past, the memories she had harbored all alone that she'd kept Subaru from touching all this time. Drawing in his breath at her confession, Subaru took Emilia's hand into his own.
Thank you for talking to me. This could get long, right? We should sit.
Yeah.
Nodding, Emilia sat upon the bed, with Subaru sitting down right beside her. When Emilia deepened her brow, seemingly unsure of what to speak of, Subaru glanced at the side of her face as he spoke.
Hey, I don't want to interrupt, but what do you mean before you slept?
I haven't told you about being in the ice all that time, have I, Subaru?
Inside the ice? Wait, do you mean while frozen?
The unexpected words made Subaru blink. For a moment, an image from the facility in the forest, the crystal in which Ryuzumeyer was sealed, came into the back of his mind. Strictly speaking, that differed from being frozen, but the images were terribly similar, provided that Subaru had not misunderstood.
I was frozen in the forest for a long time. A very, very long time until Puck found me. He said I'd been sleeping within the ice.
After a pause, Emilia's confession established that Subaru's striking mental image had indeed been true. Touching the crystal at her neck in which Puck was sealed, Emilia closed her eyes. No doubt the memory of the spirit at her side when she had awoken was playing out on the back of her eyelids. That was probably when the loving bonds of trust between Emilia and Puck had begun. While he certainly felt envy for that, the keywords ice and forest stimulated Subaru's memory.
I see the eternally frozen Great Ellier Forest. come to think of it, back at the royal selection meeting.
His memories of the opening speech conducted at the site of the royal selection returned to him. With a great throng of people surrounding them in the royal court, Amelia had most certainly spoken of herself, that she had lived in the forest, spending a long time within it, and how she had lived in the frozen forest and had been called the freezing witch.
Amelia, if you were in ice in the forest all that time, exactly how long were you there?
My memories are really hazy. I was probably 6 or 7 at the time.
6 or 7. Do elves count years the same way humans do?
As Subaru counted on his fingers, Amelia meekly nodded. Being frozen solid during your childhood and waking up years later was tantamount to a time slip. Amelia had probably been hurled into a new era like a distant cousin of the mythic Taro Urashima. It was only natural that the time she subsequently spent together with Puck made them just like family.
So the memories you see in the tomb are from before you were frozen and the forest was frozen when?
Apparently, it was about 100 years ago.
I see. 100, yeah. 100, yeah. 100 years?
As he tried to put the timeline in order, her casual reply took Subaru by surprise. Noticing his reaction, Amelia asked, "What is it?" as she tilted her head.
I was imagining a span of 10 years, so I wondered if it was off by a digit. I mean, Amelia Tan, you look like you're the same age as I am, so I figured the time frozen was.
I kept growing physically while I was inside the ice. That's why, right after I woke up, it was like being in another person's body, enough to make me trip and slip up all over the place.
I see. So putting everything together.
Amelia was around 7 years old when she first slept, and it had been 100 years or so later when she awoke. In other words, Amelia's chronological age was 107 years old at this point in time.
So Amelia Tan, how many years has it been since Puck woke you?
I think it was probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Amelia's reply was not very precise, but the response convinced Subaru that his doubts were true. She was 107 years old after emerging from the ice. From there, she had lived 7 years, making her 114. Amelia was 114 years old, 18 years old, going by outward appearance, and mentally, 14 years of age.
Our real age, apparent age, and mental age, they're all disconnected.
The elven blood Amelia had inherited made her age a vague concept in ways not normally possible. At the same time, it resolved many doubts Subaru had about Amelia's behavior. For someone who had lived for over a century, she was fairly ignorant of worldly affairs, often used phrases and gestures that stood out as childish, and from time to time, she liked using words that seemed oddly archaic. All of these things could be attributed to the fact that Amelia had spent most of her life sleeping within the ice.
14. That's no different than felt, so why?
Why did this girl have to bear such heavy responsibilities? The competition for the throne, the frozen forest of her homeland, the sanctuary with 4 centuries of stop time. The sufferings pouring down upon her were so numerous, so illogical, that he wanted to yell, "Why?"
Subaru?
Sorry, and I said, I wasn't trying to interrupt.
With Amelia growing concerned, Subaru forced himself to smile as he responded. Her sufferings with the royal selection only made his ire for Rose Wall grow within his chest. But had it not been for that, Subaru would have never met Amelia, hence his irritation.
Amelia, did you live a normal life before the forest froze?
I probably did when I lived together with everyone in the forest.
When Subaru tried to get the conversation back on track, Amelia touched a hand to her forehead as she replied haltingly. It looked suspiciously like she was enduring some kind of pain. Subaru touched her slender shoulder with a hand.
Amelia, are you all right? If it's hard to talk about.
It's all right. It's just, my memories aren't very clear. Even though I saw my past at the trial, I really didn't understand what I was seeing.
You cannot remember the memories you saw. Is that even?
Whether it was possible was beyond Subaru to judge. Subaru had challenged his past but once, and with that one time, Subaru had overcome the trial. Accordingly, his memories of both his parents were clear, but he didn't know what would have happened to those memories if he'd failed. There was no guarantee the trial hadn't been wickedly put together to make repeat challengers suffer.
How about trying to remember one bit at a time? For example, who did you live in the forest with?
There was a tiny settlement in the forest. All the elves lived there together.
Amelia, what about your family?
He wondered about both her parents and any siblings. It was with that intent that Subaru asked the question, but he instantly realized his error. Amelia had always spoken of Puck as her only family. That she'd lost her entire birth family was something he should have deduced without thinking.
Don't worry about that. My family wasn't living inside the forest. Everyone was really nice to me, and I liked everyone, but, family.
With Subaru regretting his slip, Amelia resolutely smiled and shook her head.
There was someone like a mommy to me. She was really gentle, beautiful, amazing.
Mommy?
She had a look in her eyes like you have, Subaru. Just a tiny bit.
Still smiling, Amelia was finding something in common between Subaru and her memories of her mother. However, that smile abruptly stiffened, and Amelia blinked her eyes several times.
Why, Mommy, Why did I call her that?
Seemingly in disbelief, the shaken Amelia touched a hand to her own lips. Amelia's gaze began to wander around the room as if searching for an answer, yet it was unable to find one. But there was no reason a lost fragment of memory would be found fallen on the floor of her temporary abode.
Amelia, calm down. Take it easy. There's no need to rush.
Amelia was on the brink of panic when Subaru wrapped an arm around her head, pulling her close against him. Her long silver hair flowed down her back as Amelia found, in her surprise, that her forehead touched Subaru's chest. He let her hear his heartbeat, just like Amelia had done for Subaru the night before.
What happened to everyone when the forest froze?
Just like me. They were inside the ice. They're still frozen even now. I was living inside the forest with Puck, waiting for everyone.